Thank you, Mr. Payne. We have Anthony Payne with us this morning for legal representation. Helen Jo Free will join us, I believe, later. Thank you for making time to help us with this meeting. I'm Richard Bookwalter, President of the California Board of Occupational Therapy. I'd like to call the meeting for August 22nd, 2024 to order. May we have a roll call? Is Secretary Doe on?
Yes. Board Member Cabrera,
Present.
Board Member Miller,
Here.
Board Member Palovich, Board Member Whittlesbach,
Here.
Secretary Doe here, Vice President Marcos,
Here.
and President Bookwalter.
Here. Thank you, Esther.
This is the moderator, just to jump in real quick. Board Member Cabrera, I think we lost your video. If we could have you turn the video back on.
Hold on a minute.
Are you ready to continue?
Hold on a minute.
There's a bit of a delay in the audio. We're hearing a repeat. But that's better.
You can't see me yet.
This is the moderator. It appears that your video is not on. Are you on a Apple device by chance?
A Samsung phone.
Dang it, I don't have instructions for Samsungs, though I'm not sure if they look the same. Do you see like a little camera icon at the bottom of your WebEx application?
Just a second.
A question for our council. Do we have, are we able to proceed with the president's remarks without Hector Cabrera on video, or do we need to wait?
Chair, I'd recommend that maybe we take a 5-minute break just to work out the technological details, and then I think we could resume. Option could be if we have a quorum without Board Member Cabrera, perhaps we would proceed and Board Member Cabrera would simply not vote and would be an observer at this meeting.
Yeah, that sounds like a good solution. Do we not need to drop him off the WebEx so he can participate? He could remain on the listening, or you just drop him from a presenter to an attendee?
Yes.
Is that the procedure?
Yes.
A moderator, can we do that, and so we can proceed with our meeting?
Yes, but if he gets his video connected, do you want him? Well, I wouldn't be able to know if his video is connected if he's an attendee. So
why don't we have Hector text Heather Martin if he's able to reconnect his video, and then he can advise the moderator. She can advise the moderator. Oh, he's not allowed to turn.
He doesn't have the option to turn on video while he's an attendee.
Yeah, we'll just, yeah. We have
Hi,
a
this is
suggestion.
Anthony again. We certainly could promote him at the appropriate time if that's how it works out.
Let's check in again at our first break, and then we can, if we can reconnect it during the break, the first break, then he can, we can bring Hector Cabrera back up to, as a participant. All right. It looks like Hector, you're now a participant. Let us know. We'll talk to you at the next break. I'd like to return to the agenda for the August 22nd Board of Occupational Therapy meeting. The first item on our agenda is we've finished, established a quorum. We still have a quorum with Hector as an observer. Item number 2 is President's remarks. I would like to, first of all, I'd like to thank Stanbridge Occupational Therapy Lab for letting us use their space. You will notice on camera that there are a number of things that are unusual for a board meeting here. We have an oven, we have off camera a bathtub with a grab bar, we have raised toilet seats, we have a sensory swing for children, typically used for vestibular rehabilitation and sensory integration. We have mats, we have appliances. So these are the tools of our trade. So people unfamiliar with occupational therapy may not be used to seeing these in a meeting room, but these are quite familiar to all of us therapy practitioners, OT practitioners, and I hope you will appreciate that that we're here in the field at an occupational therapy program where on other days young therapists, well, some not so young, will be training for our profession. I also want to talk about a couple of training things. Well, we'll talk about the agenda in a minute. A couple of training things that happened, and as far as announcements are concerned, there have been a couple of leadership trainings at DCA, one of which was around the issue of how boards address questions about practice that are not explicitly stated in their practice acts. We'll talk some more about that during the practice committee report later in this 2-day meeting. The topic of the second was how trauma causes people to violate practice act provisions, and then how as board members we can avoid triggering further trauma through our disciplinary process. It was interesting topics. A friendly reminder to board that all board members have a mandatory training to complete by August 30th, this August 30th, so coming right up, 8 more days, and that is for workplace violence prevention. That is, you log onto the DCA website and go to the LMS section tab. They do require regular password updates, so some of us have had trouble getting back on because you have to change your password again, so start early before August 30th, please, to finish that. I too have to finish that. And then another training opportunity is the National Board for Certification in Occupational Therapy, which has an OT State Regulatory Leadership Forum. It's online, it's been virtual since COVID. September 10th and 11th, all occupational therapy licensing board members may attend sign up for this, it's free. It's by the National Board for Certification in OT. They presented to us at our last meeting, but this is one of the resources that they have for state regulatory leadership, and they're very useful because they do talk about some of the ethical dilemmas that we face. I found the sessions to be useful. If you want more information, I can send it to you. Okay, regarding the agenda, I have another couple more remarks about the agenda. I believe we're moving our practice committee update to tomorrow, and the reason being that we have some new materials that we've received that we haven't had a chance to review, and some language, so that would be much better served, but we have an opportunity to take a look at that tomorrow. Were there any other changes, board members, to the agenda? That we'll make changes as we need to. We do have a hard stop. We must break for lunch, and then we have a 2 o'clock hearing in this room with for Rondell McKee, as stated, a petition for reinstatement. We'll have the administrative law judge and the petitioner here in the room. So we have to prepare. We have to break for lunch for everyone. So we have a legal lunch break, and for everyone, and then also prepare for the hearing. So we'll get started. I have no further remarks. Board members, do you have any remarks that you would like to make? Why don't we start at the end with Sharon Pavlovich? Denise Miller?
I just wanted to say welcome. I happen to teach at Stanbridge University, and I teach one course, a leadership, health policy and management course. And it's very nice to be on this brand new campus.
Beata Marcus, no comments? No comments. Thank you. Oh, Lena Doe, I'm sorry. Sorry, Lena. Board member.
I apologize that I'm not there, but I thought our meeting was in the Bay Area. So, but I'm glad that I could show up on video, and I'm look forward to the meeting.
Thank you. I'm sorry about these. One thing about that, not being in the Bay Area, we by picking these dates, we came into conflict with a number of schools' first weeks of classes. And that is one of the problems that we had with our Northern California locations and some of our Southern California locations. So we were able to secure that the Northern California location at Dominican University for November, and then swapped for Southern California. So sorry about that, the inconvenience for that for everyone. Any more board member remarks? Hearing none, let's go to number 4, public comments for items not on the agenda. This is an opportunity for people who are here in the room, there are none, or virtual to introduce themselves if you wish. That's not obligatory. And also to bring up any issues that you would like the board to address at a future meeting.
All right, this is the moderator for participants on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment for items not on the agenda, please click the raise hand icon next to your name or at the bottom of your WebEx screen. And if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, and it looks like we do have a couple requests for public comment. First, I have Ada Boone Horrell, and you'll be given 3 minutes to speak with a 15-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
A program director, Sacramento City College. Just wanting to introduce myself and thank the board for all of their diligent work. Glad to be here. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Next we have Micah Pearson, and Micah, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 15-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
I'm the MSOT program director here at Stanford University. I'm currently on my way over to Riverside, so I'll look forward to seeing many of you later this morning. Thank you very much.
All right, this is the moderator. Appears to be all our requests for public comment.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ada Boone Hurl and Micah Pearson. We look forward to meeting you later. Thank you for participating in our committee's work. I'd like to move on to our next agenda item, a review and vote on approval of the May 2nd and 3rd board meeting minutes in the board packet under section 5. It says draft at the top. Do we have, I have a couple comments, but you want to go first? Denise Miller?
President Bookwalter, I just have a question on page 2 at the bottom.
Page 2 at the bottom.
It is
Which paragraph?
right above public comment. It is a comment that Ms. Doe and I made before where we were inquiring about the PDU violations that occurred in South Carolina. This is in relation to MBCOT certification and versus those states who require it versus those who don't. Just wondering if staff has this on a future agenda item, or if this will be presented to us, or if this is included in some report here that I couldn't find. Do we know, Heather?
I'm checking the future agenda items. Looks like that was missed. It looks like it is not included in the future agenda items. So, my apologies for missing that. We will have staff add that to the future agenda items and bring that back for prioritization unless, Mr. Bookwalter wants to include that in the items to be prioritized, tomorrow when that item is discussed.
Or the only other question I have, President Bookwalter, if you don't see that as a future agenda item, could we at least ask staff to bring that, could Heather Martin bring that back from one of her reports to, it's just simply identifying the violations in South Carolina?
Let's put it on the list of future agenda items. I mean, if people,
Sure.
is that the consensus of the board? That would be a good idea. So I'm not quite familiar. I'm not as familiar with the South Carolina violations as I should be too. And we can't discuss it further. That being on the agenda. Any other comments, Board Member Miller?
No, thank you.
I think we have a couple of others on the top of page 3. There's a repetitive language for the practitioners is repeated. And I think it's for the practitioners who were not registered with it. For the practitioners that were not registered, and I would probably say who. And remove the repetition. I also had some changes in the dry needling, in item 18. There was it says in the second paragraph of item 18, it says, Mr. Bookwalter referenced the acupuncture board laws regarding dry needling. Practitioners who use dry needling without an acupuncture license are subject to legal penalties. And I think that was a little more definitive than I was in my statement. Using dry needles, it was a question that we batted around during that meeting, and also whether they were subject to legal penalties or not was up for discussion. So I would change it to practitioners who use dry needles without an acupuncture license may be subject to legal penalties. This statement sounds a little more definitive than I feel I was and am about that. And then the second paragraph confused me because it says the paragraph after that. The board's attorney, Helen Joffrey, announced that the board tasked her with information on how to provide a solid foundation for determinations on scope of practice in general. Ms. Joffrey's recommendation to the board is to start with a publicly accessible, formalized scope of practice document that exclusively includes dry needling. And I really wasn't sure if that was a direction. It sounded almost instructive to the board to take action on that, to start with a publicly accessible scope of practice document. Is that a publicly accessible document that the board's supposed to generate? I don't think that's at all what the attorney was saying in this. So I would like it to be revisited. Perhaps we could have it take these minutes back and check.
Yes, and actually I did touch, it's on, yeah, sorry. Also, I did touch base with our attorney regarding that statement as well as one on as a couple on page 13. And so since she's unable to be here this morning, I've been asked to let you know that I will work with her on those. And if there are other, at the time when there are other edits that are made.
Okay.
President Bookwalter, if I may add to this part of the conversation on 18.
Sure.
If Heather Martin is bringing something back regarding this topic, is it possible then to follow up on page 13 under public comment? Kristen Neville with AOTA offered to provide us with documents. And so if there is going to be going back and looking, is it possible to follow up with her as well and see what those documents are? Otherwise, if you want to put the topic of dry needling to bed, I'm okay. We don't.
As far as the minutes are concerned, I have no objection to including that. You know, I mean, we should. Putting it on the agenda, though, it's another question.
Right, yes, this, the revisiting would only be about the language in the minutes. But certainly, I can follow up with staff to know that item's been completed.
The one regarding Kristen Neville's comment?
Correct.
Thank you so much.
Can I make another? Should I make some more comments while we're here, just so they can be included in the whatever comes next, the next version? The first paragraph of that on page 13, where it says the California Acupuncture Board in protection its jurisdiction, etc. I'm not sure the protection its jurisdiction was anyway. That's the that sounds somewhat editorial. A robust, also the next one, a robust discussion regarding the difference between dry needling and acupuncture ensued. In conclusion, Ms. Joffrey recommended that the board change the statute if they want to include dry needling in the scope of practice. And that, I think that seeking to change the statute would be better. And then it's not the board's will to, there's a question about whether it's the role of the board to change the scope of practice. It seems directive in a way that not sure that the attorney meant it to seem. Following that, under public comment, the third paragraph is in the board member witness block asks why it's necessary for the California Acupuncture Board to proclaim that dry needling is in the scope of practice only. I think it's their scope of practice only, not the. I think it should be the there probably.
What I would suggest that if there are any other items where the wording is questioned, if you could let me know, and then I will be sure to incorporate suggestions recommended by board members, as well as what the result of conversation is with legal counsel and I regarding the comments attributed to her. So, we can ensure accuracy.
That's great. Thank you. And then I just wanted to, we're going to be talking about the 2570.19 and 2570.18 and later in the agenda. So there are some items for reference here because we have some we're going to be referring back to item number 20. It's basically item number 20 in this, but that's just for reference. So anyway, do we need a motion? Go ahead.
I have some.
Christine, about this podcast one.
Yes, under item 9 on page 4.
9 on page 4.
The practice committee update. It'll be the third paragraph from the bottom that starts with Mr. Bookwalter. So it's just the flow of this information that I think is a little confusing. We were talking about the board decided that we can't provide an all-encompassing answer. This is in the paragraph above, and that staff should be directed to tell people when they call in about this question that if whether or not hand therapy approval is required for treating patients with carpal tunnel syndrome, it would depend on the etiology of the problem. Okay. So the next paragraph, it has nothing to do with that in particular, but the way it's written, it seems like that. So it seems like what you said here is that an OT should have to work with someone who's already approved in hand therapy if they were working with anybody who had carpal tunnel syndrome. That's not what you meant. What we were talking about was you were reminding people that in the context of getting their approval to practice hand therapy, that they would be able to work with anybody who had carpal tunnel syndrome. So you were just talking about you wouldn't have to worry about this if you were under the supervision of someone who already had approval to work.
Well, yeah, what I was trying to say was we had a question, an earlier discussion about if a person asks, can I treat the hand, such and such an injury?
Yeah.
And we didn't have a response before except to just direct them to the language of the law saying, is it an injury? What's the etiology of it? But then I thought it would be more helpful to add a statement about how they could make an agreement, start work with someone who's already certified we should be more helpful as a board in responding to a question like that, not just say, look at the law, because anybody can say, look at the law. That's not sort of helpful, but it would be more helpful to say, there is a way for you to obtain the supervision and training and to get hours and learn and how to do hand therapy, and then also serve your clients by doing this agreement. So that was kind of what I was trying to get at, that we should be more helpful and also and supply people with more information.
Right.
And that's the second part of that paragraph.
Right. So maybe we could just add something about, give more information about the pathway to approval.
That would be great. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an excellent.
Yeah.
This is Heather. So what would be helpful is if I was given the notes about that, so we can make sure that the information is brought back to the board, correctly. But also I would just double check, since that's based on the March 1st minutes, please just before this item, double check the practice committee minutes and make sure that there's consistency and that the lack of clarity provided in the May board meeting minutes aren't also in the March practice.
This isn't something that was discussed in the practice committee minutes. This is something that Richard came up with during the board meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll just need specific
After sleep.
Language.
Yes,
Use more language.
yes, please.
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
That would be great. Thank you.
So no, I just would like to say that based on reading all these minutes, I know I had several comments regarding dry needling and acupuncturist being part of it, and I don't find it here at all.
So you can check the
That's it.
transcript for Beata, make sure that.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Do we have any more comments on these minutes for the next iteration, which I hope we'll see at our next board meeting? If you have anything more, please do forward them to Heather Martin so that we can get them added. So we can take a look at them at our next board meeting. Do we need a motion to carry this over to the next board meeting? No, we just table this. We'll just table this until the next board meeting. Secretary Doe, did you have any comments?
I was gonna ask, do you need a motion to table this? That's all.
Thank you for thinking.
Hello, this is Anthony again. Yeah, we do not need a motion just to table it, but I would recommend we do take public comment before we move on to the next agenda item.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Public comment, moderator, could you open to public comment? We have no one here in the room.
All right, this is the moderator for members on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the raise hand button, or if you're an audio only participant, raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, it appears we have no requests for public comment, so I believe we can move on.
Thank you, moderator. That completes item 5 on the agenda. Item 6, we're moving to tomorrow so that we can review some new materials that arrived today. Number 7, we have, we're moving on to item number 7, it's the ad hoc committee on non-licensee criteria to serve on board committees. I would like to refer to the chair of that committee, Beata Marcos.
Thank you. So first of all, I would like to say thank you to Sharon, Ada, and Carlin to participate. We had a great meeting, and hopefully what we came up with, the board will like. So as you saw the meeting minutes, I'm sure I'm just gonna quickly do an update to summarize what we have come up with. So what we would like to recommend to the board is for the all standing committees, which we have 4 of them. So all the standing except administrative committee, to have the composition of committee to be as follows. Consist of a minimum of 4 members, 75% of which shall be licensees, and at least one of whom shall be a board member. The remainder of the committee may be public members. So for example, the calculations would be as followed. If we have 4-member committee, that would be 1 public member. 5, 6 as well, it would be 1 public member. If we have 7, it would be 2 public members, and that's how it would go up. It would not be specified that, so, okay, I'll continue with the following criteria that we have, is that based on our manual, we have two criteria. One, which are the licensees, criteria to serve on the committee, and the other one is public member criteria to serve on the committee, which then these public members, we're not calling them non-licensees anymore, and it will just be everyone as far as like retired licensees, students, professionals from licensees in from the different industry can be on the considered as public member. The one thing that we changed, as board already approved or accepted, is that not the retired licensees, instead of within 5 years, we changed it to 3 years. Besides that, everything remains the same. And so, do anybody have any questions so far? Or? So we updated in different chapters for all of the 3 remaining committees. Everybody is because the administrative committee that only includes president, vice president, and the executive officer. We do understand, and we were talking about it a lot regarding the practice committee, because we understand that some professions might have questions that they don't want the public member to participate in something that, you know, they couldn't contribute or it's not from their profession. However, because it's going to be for the board president at that time to decide who is going to be serving on that specific committee, can decide whether or not he or she wants to have the public member to participate. The reason why we decided to do that is so we are not going to miss out on, perhaps if it's a PT or for the swallowing of somebody who is outside of the OT practitioners, but really knows a lot about it, but cannot contribute because we wouldn't allow the public members to participate in that committee. So that's the reason why we decided to have all those requirements to be exactly the same for all 4 standing committees, except administrative committee, which I can read. It's again what I mentioned earlier. That would be a minimum of 4 member. So all the 4 committees would have the same exact description. Minimum of 4 members, 75% of which shall be licensees, at least one of whom shall be board member. The remainder of the committee may be public member, and that's when we have retired licensees, OT, OTA students, healthcare licensees, other professionals with relevant experience. So.
Miss Board Member Morcos, I have a question.
Sure.
Would you like me to wait? Or
No, that's pretty
it's
much
specifically, it's specifically the section you're on, drawing your attention to page 3, the middle of the page where you have in italics, will consist of a minimum of 4 members. I know this is somewhat granular, but just so there's no confusion around this, a minimum of 4 members means that 3 would have an occupational therapy license, 1 would be a public member, or 1 would be a student, correct?
No, it would be total of 1 public member.
Right.
It
3
would-
practitioners, 1 public member. That public member could be a student.
Could be a student,
Okay.
could be an retired licensee, or could be a professional from the industry.
So now, could we just go through this exercise? 5 board members, what does that look like?
Still would be 4 licensees and 1 public member, which could be anybody. Could be a student, it could be a retired licensee or a healthcare licensee from different relevant experience.
And that would be the same for 6 and 7, right? Is the threat, what is the threshold?
The
8?
threshold is 7. When you get to 7, then you get 2 public members.
Okay, and the 2 public members could be, again, what's in that category? What's in your category? of public-
Retired licensees, OTO, OTA students,
Oh, it's
healthcare licensees,
bottom of the page.
other professionals with relevant experience.
Thank you very much for identifying and going through that exercise. And thanks for your leadership on this.
Oh, thank you. No problem. So this would pretty much conclude, obviously we welcome as many, to have not, ideally you would have a bigger committees like 10. So the bigger the committee, the more public members we can have. And that's when we can make sure that we have a little bit of every, from retired licensees and students, hopefully, be part of it as well. Is that, would you like to add anything, Sharon, since you were?
It was a great, robust discussion. Really.
Thank you. And is that okay if I know that Ada would perhaps would like to say something since she was on the committee, or is it would have to be a public comment?
Oh my God.
Well, yeah, can we just
Okay.
wait one more second? 'Cause we have one more comment, which is, sorry, if we can just wait one more second. So I really appreciate the work of this because it's getting in the weeds and figuring all this out and looking at all the different sides of it. There's one additional concern, which is having even numbers of people on the board, and you could get split votes for these committees. And it is nice to have odd numbers, just because then it may be easier to make a decision. And I see that these are 4 members. I think the practice committee currently has a minimum of 7 members, going down to 4. So I'm just wondering.
So
That discussion was.
we cannot discuss that. It's part of the manual, and that would be my ideal recommendation that we put it on the future item agenda. So the board altogether has to make that change. We cannot in the committee.
Oh, okay.
So we could say that we want to have a minimum 5 members, so this is easier to vote. And ideally, the reason why I know initially I was told to make it smaller so we can get more participants, but I would be much more comfortable to put at least 5 for every standing committee.
Oh, okay.
But we couldn't change that. It has to be on the future agenda.
Oh, okay.
Just a point of correction on that, though.
Okay.
It
Just a
doesn't have
second.
to, right?
No, it does. Except
Right.
that the
Could you
board.
turn on your mic, please?
So yeah, to confirm, that won't need to be on a future agenda since the board will be voting on items in the manual today. That even though it wasn't a recommendation from the committee because it wasn't listed on that agenda, that the board can include that today.
I believe we have the
that
language.
would be great.
I believe we have the language here at the end of the item that includes the recommendations of the committee from the draft minutes, which I think look pretty good too. And I appreciate all the work that went into that. Did you have something else you wanted?
We definitely went all over different ideas and everything. So this took us a while to figure out, and everybody was pleased in the end. So hopefully.
Just to make sure that I understand the direction of this ad hoc is to establish criteria. This criteria will be established to all the different ad hocs. So for example, the fact that the practice board has 7 members, this criteria would be applied to it, and they would be able to say 75% of on the practice committee, I believe they all have to be practitioners.
You're looking at the minutes, and in the back, if you look past the minutes, I believe you'll find language that actually incorporates it in and includes ad hocs further. Sorry.
No, my point isn't to speak. I can move on from that. The real statement I'm making here is this is just criteria. And so doesn't have to be a future agenda item, but when it's applied to other boards, Heather Martin, is it ever possible to include tables instead of so much verbiage? Like, for example, and I'm only going here because when we talk about supervision standards, it would become more uniform. But to this committee, the way we just went through the exercise of 4 individuals, 5, 6, I mean, can we do something as clear as day like that ever in our guidelines? in a table format.
Well, my opinion is that this isn't very wordy. I mean, that the slight modification was instead of saying a committee had to consist of 4, it said a minimum of, right? So that's minimal, specifying 75% should be licensed and the rest could be public members. And I think the highlights from the August committee meeting, one of the comments that I think is very, critical to the board when considering this is that it was pointed out that the board president has that discretion to make those appointments and therefore has the flexibility on the appointing somebody with relevant, experience. And so with, as long as the 75% licensed members is met, then if there are more than 4 on a committee or there are more than 4 appointed, that's still addressed in this language. And I'm not sure that a table is necessary to.
Can I respond further? The reason I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be pushy about looking in your packet, but looking at the language here, I was meant to refer you to page 3 of the proposed language that was provided with this item, and under ad hoc committees, it's not included. The 75% ratio is not included in the ad hoc committees.
But it will be following this committee, right? That's my question.
I believe this is the proposed language in front of us that we would be voting on today if we were to decide to do that or not.
It's not, it doesn't.
It's not for ad hoc committees.
All
If I could direct you to page 4.
Okay.
Towards the bottom under appointments, the language about standing and ad hoc committees is also added there.
Oh, so it's over there.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry, what we realized was that, for example, minimum qualifications for non-licensee board members was included under meeting procedures, for example, right? So that's one of the reasons once the criteria was broken down for each of the different committee member types, including non-board member licensees, as well as these other potential participants grouped under public members. That's one of the reasons there was a new section so that all of the information regarding the appointing the appointments would be clear. So we added the language to the appointments to provide the clarity, and then with the newest they're specifying the minimum of 75% license. Again, I believe the supervision standards committee has 17 or 18 people, right? It's a very large committee. And the 75% under these guidelines would be met, even though that's an ad hoc committee. But at the time, there would have been the discretion to appoint public members should that have been the recommendation. So I hope that clarifies. Thank you.
So the only follow-up comment I have regarding the question about how it's presented, if the will of the board or board staff thinks it's clear, then it's clear. I'm not gonna fall down on that. But I would just ask us to remember, because this is a manual and it's procedures, that there are many of us here who've been on the board a long time who have institutional knowledge, including board staff. But next year is a different year. And so if we could just start thinking in our threshold thinking, if it's clear to someone who has no knowledge of the board, then leave it as is. But if it's not, let's try to make every effort we can to really make it as clear as possible.
So what is not clear for you? So to you, what is not clear?
That is not my point. It's clear. I just wonder, I've had to ask you 4 times about the 75-25. You know that. I've called you, I've made comments here. So if I, who've been on the board for almost 12 years, have questions, then it's not clear. So to further have to explain that so all I'm saying is if everyone else doesn't feel that way, they don't feel that way.
Okay.
And so that's fine. My comments are, remember that there's a lot of institutional knowledge, both specifically on our board staff leaving. And so we want to just make sure everything's clear. That's it. Nothing more.
I mean, I thank you. I understand that. We've been even the numbers that we provided, when it's 7, it would be 2 public members. It's just based on calculation. I think it's very clear across the board. If you have 20 people, this is exact 75% of that will be guaranteed licensees. So it protects the board that still majority, like way, more than majority would be licensees who will protect the industry. The only thing that, well, that's pretty much, the one thing that we were really deliberating on for a long time, it was whether or not the practice committee should have public members, but we decided that it's important that we're not excluding anybody, in writing, and the president would decide and choose the proper people to serve on those committees. That concludes my report. I mean,
I have one
sorry.
more. May I just have one?
And
question?
I think Lena wants to come
Oh,
as well.
Lena, you have your hand raised. Oh, no, it's the hand, it's the cursor is on Lena's face. Could you move the cursor away from Lena's face? Because it looks like your hand is raised. It's a little hand. Sorry. I have one question. I have a question. So this is it's a minimum of 75% practitioners. So it could be 100% practitioners, but it's more than 25% public member, up to 25% public members. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And I still don't see where ad hoc committees have that in this document.
Well, the ad hoc committees are
Under item 8,
well, that's the new chapter.
they're not standing committees. Ad hoc committees, are they?
Yeah, they're under standing committees.
I thought ad hoc committees were not standing committees, or standing committees, and ad hoc committees are ad hoc committees. Is that not?
No.
That's what I thought.
That's my understanding. Standing committees are the one. Ad hocs are temporary, and standing are going.
That's my understanding as well. I think, Beata, if I may, are you just saying that the description of ad hoc committee is?
Well, it would be, well, unless we add more standing committees, right? That's what I understood. That's how I understood. But the criteria would still be then the same all across the board. So no matter standing committee, or are you saying because it's not specified that it's for ad hocs as well? Because under all of the, I mean, based on what receiver was
Well, I think the ad hoc committees seem to have more discretion. But
in my understanding, it's under the same. All of this is the same criteria, right? For licensees and public members to be.
I hear what you're saying, but carrying the other board member remarks, I know that was the intention. However, they're right. It's not
Okay.
reflected. So on page 3, under ad hoc committees, I would recommend that there be an edit there in ad hoc committees. Subject to this, subject to 75% being licensees, be incorporated in that last paragraph.
just so add a minimum. Okay. So we could add a minimum of 75% of shall be licensees. Or something. If that's what you would like.
That was actually part of the discussion.
Oh, and it wasn't reflected here.
Yeah, well, it was discussed, but it wasn't talked about specifically editing that section. We
Okay.
thought it was incorporated by this language of the other one, and I could see it's definitely, I believe it would be more clear, even though it's say an internal working document for the board. I believe it would be more clear. Mentions that, subject to 75% minimum licensees being appointed or something similar. So
Would this be a good time for Ada Boone Hurl to speak for public comment? Public comment, please.
This is the moderator, and members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, you may raise your hand. And if you are an audio-only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, and it looks like we do have a request for comment from Ada Boone. And Ada, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 15-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you for the opportunity. I don't have a lot to add from what's been discussed because I think that a majority of the points have been addressed and clarified. So if there's something in particular that I can clarify, please let me know. But one comment is remembering that with that public member, first, it'll be dependent on the interest of a public member to participate. So the committee may well be 100% licensees. And by setting that minimum standard, then we're ensuring that we have a diversity of opinion in the group. And the other factor is that it is at the will of the president approval to be on that committee. So I don't think that we would end up with a rogue public member, so to speak, or someone that can't make a meaningful contribution to the group. My one question that I am confused on, though, is my notes reflect that it was 5 years or less for the retiree. But I think 3 years, perhaps that's moot because they would then just come in after 3 years as a general public member. So I just wanted to point out that my notes reflect something different, but I think that's easily resolved. Is there anything else that I might contribute or anyone?
May I ask, would you object to a 5-person instead of a 4-person minimum for the boards, pardon me, the committee membership?
The 4 just really frankly generated because of simplicity of math to start a discussion, I think is really where 4 came from. And it felt like a substantial enough number. I have no concern about it being at 5. And I hear the value of having the odd numbered size groups, especially in the smaller size committees.
Thank you.
5 is great.
Thank you. Sounds.
I just wanted, could you clarify when you said the retirees 3 versus 5? We didn't talk about it at the last committee because board already approved it from our meeting previously in October meeting. So that's something we came up with in October meeting. Board accepted it, and then we had to just modify the percentages. That's are you not okay? I mean, please just clarify that for me.
No, I'm fine. I am from accuracy. It was just in my notes, and it's probably likely it's more a clarifying question, in that my notes reflect it being 5 years, and in the midst of looking for other items through our discussion, I missed that transaction and decision from the previous meeting, and I apologize for the confusion.
Oh, no worries. I just wanted to make sure that everybody's okay with this.
Yes, thank you.
So yeah, it's gonna be public members instead of retired. All right, thank you, Ada.
Thank you.
Moderator, do we have any further public comment online?
This is the moderator. Appears there are no further comments.
Thank you.
Would it be okay, either President Bookwalter or Beata Marcos, if either of you could just summarize what the action is before the board after this report? Are we doing anything with this?
Well, I think we've identified a couple of potential revisions to I think we can accept the report of the committee and also consider the language. If we want to bring the language back with a couple of changes, we could either do that here if they're simple changes, or we could have the language brought back at the next meeting to discuss then. But there are 2 changes potentially. One is adding the 75% to the ad hoc committee to make sure it applies. That identifies that there could be 75% shall be licensees. And the second would be the minimum number of board members, switching that from 4 to 5. It sounds like Beata, you mentioned 5. Ada Boone Hurl, who's also on the committee, mentioned that 5 was okay. If the board is good with 5, we could do a motion to change to make it 5 and then to add the 75% minimum practitioners to the ad hoc committee. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. And I just have one more follow-up question. Does your ad hoc committee think they have any more work to do, or because if they don't, I believe we could make a motion and move on this.
We do not.
Okay, so if they don't, it's up to you, President Bookwalter, if you want, but I'm letting you know I'm ready to just dig in and add those items and make motions if they have nothing, if their ad hoc committee has nothing more they'd like to accomplish.
Thank you. Do
I have a clarification.
yeah.
So are we
Please.
saying that we're changing it all of the different committees to the minimum of 5 members? Or are we just changing one committee to a minimum of 5 members?
That's a good question.
My understanding is that equal to all of the committees to be the same across the board. That would be the recommendation.
Including ad hoc?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Because I'd like to hear, I know exactly where you're going, President Bookwalter, on the whole consensus, and I'm not opposed to 5. I'm also not opposed to 4. Where I might lean towards 4 is how hard it is to get a working committee together. Just something for everyone to consider.
Thank you. And I'd like to piggyback on that comment, Board Member Miller, because we have, for example, a 2-member executive officer search committee, which is an ad hoc committee. And that would be less, obviously, than 5. And so I'm thinking that maybe not having a minimum number for the ad hoc committees might be a good idea, but including 4 for the ones that are stated in this document, 5, changing 4 to 5 for the 3 standing committees would be more comfortable for me. Our legislative regulatory affairs committee has been smaller than that too. It's usually like 3 people. So I don't know if 3 would be a better number for that than 5.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest. I was going to suggest that we go down to a minimum of 3 because that's an odd number to break any ties. And then that way we are not struggling to get members to fill this committee in order to hold the committee meeting.
Thoughts?
Could you just say one more time how you summarize that? I want to get that. So the ad hoc tabling the suggestion that Board Member Doe made for just a second so I can understand your comment. 4 on the ad hoc, and then what did you say about the other committees?
Me or
Board or President Bookwalter?
Well, we talked about an odd number. We talked about, Beata mentioned 5 as being a comfortable number for her. Ada Boone Hurl mentioned 5 as comfortable for her. Thinking about our committees, we've had 3 on the Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee. We have 2 on the Ad hoc Executive Officer Search Committee. We had formerly had 7 on the Practice Committee because of the many areas of practice and having a larger amount of expertise from different practice areas. So structurally, we've always had more on the Practice Committee and fewer restrictions on the other committees. And Board Member Doe does make a point that getting the participation in the committees can be challenging with the higher numbers.
Do we have to specify a minimum number? I mean, why do we have to do that? Can't we just say 75% has to be practitioners and let it be that?
on any committee?
Yeah, if you have three, then you never have a public member of the Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee. No, because
That's what,
7%, that's only 66%.
right.
But the language says may be public members. We're not obliged to put public members on, even as the language.
You would be
It's
prevented from having a public member on a three-person committee
Oh, I see.
under the 75% rule, so that's why I understand why they went to 4, because it makes it easier to make 75%.
But to the point that you've just made, President Book, that would be, or that conversation, that would be a reason to perhaps support Board Member Doe on the 3. I could see how it could be.
But you could do 4 and add a public member to a 3-person
Yeah.
committee.
I'm okay with keeping it 4.
So basically, you always want 5 people on the committee. So
And then we keep the ad hoc committee without any numbers, without any minimums. We would just add that it's minimum 75% licensing. But so we would
Sure. Do we have a motion? Do I hear a motion coming on? Any public comment on the, maybe we should, do you want to make a motion? Should we go to public comment again, or what do you think?
But if we know in our committees, we have a minimum of 3, why wouldn't we just say a minimum of 3 on the ad hoc committee?
Well, because we can't have 3 on the executive officer search, apparently.
As advised by the
HR.
legal and HR, that it has to be a 2-person committee, so that would prevent us from doing that,
Yeah. So, that aside, because we hope that doesn't happen again for another 12 years,
Well,
minimum.
Why don't we ask the legal, his opinion of, Anthony, what is your thought on preventing us from having a 2-person ad hoc committee?
To be candid, I'm not aware of any requirement that you couldn't have a 2-person committee. As you may be aware, a 2-person committee would not be subject to Bagley-Keene requirements. So unless your Practice Act specifically requires it to be Bagley-Keene sanctioned, I can't think of a reason why you couldn't have a 2-person committee. But that's with an important caveat that I'm just not aware if there's any statutory or regulatory requirements that it be a minimum beyond 2.
Okay, thank you. Where do we go from here? So we either stay with 4, we go with another number we could have different numbers for different committees, or we could just to keep them all at 4, we could put them all at 5, put them all at 3. That's pretty small text committee.
This is Anthony. What I might make a recommendation that it sounds like this issue has been worked up. I'm not familiar with it, but one option may be to approve this and then also revisit tweaks at the next meeting. So at least you have something down and you can tweak as needed by the next meeting, but at least you have something down as approved.
The only concern I have is the board represents, I don't know, we've got 23,000 practitioners in the state of California. We have a committee that's small. I know it's a hard time getting them on there. It's more out for grouping people agree. I think the more members you have, the better discussion you have. 2, but me personally, just I kind of waiver because I know we can't get the people on it, but at the same time, I don't know to the I don't know if I think the state should have to represent the entire practitioners in the state of California. Better. That's just a struggle with finding the people, but at the same time, we have to this way. But those are just thoughts.
Do you like 4 or 5? Which one do you like better? 4. Or you can just keep it 4.
So if we were to adopt what this committee's done, for what was the second and other item, Richard, or President Bookwalter, what was the other item that you asked us to consider? There was two.
Ad hoc, whether ad hoc should be included in all the same requirements as everything else.
So, no.
Your opinion is no, yeah.
Right. So
I
whenever you want a motion, let us know.
I agree. I agree with you too, Denise, about that. I feel like I'm okay with 4 or 5 and keeping 75% shall be licensees for ad hoc, but not putting a number on the ad hoc committee member. But I'm okay with 5.
Hold on. So
Are you talking about static versus ad hoc? I know we're talking-
Yeah, standing committees, I feel okay with setting a number limit, and ad hoc, I feel like maybe not having a number limit, but having the allowing for a public member.
You haven't said static, you said ad hoc.
You're right.
It's fine.
So then we would go with the 75-25 language, no minimum, take the number out, and then we would not apply this to it would just be for ad hocs, the criteria they came up with. Okay.
well, hold on, because if the meeting between Christine and I, it would be then 50-50, not 75-1 for the search committee.
But that's an ad hoc committee, so that would be okay. Oh, I see what you're saying.
So
here.
this way, maybe we can just
You're right.
leave everything as this then, so
That's
we're not
true.
limiting our ad hocs.
That's true. That's true.
So are you saying you're just gonna accept or adopt it as this, as we prepared it meant for it to be?
Do we have a motion?
Can you?
So Richard was initially wanting to see if ad hoc committees under the same criteria as all the standing committees with the 75% of which shall be licensees. He wanted initially suggesting that we could add that here, 75, but not making a minimum of 4 member, it would just be an open number. However, the committee so if we add this here, the 75% shall be licensees, that means Christine, the night committee wouldn't, like, it would be illegal, right? Because it's only one, it's 50-50.
But we had no choice about that committee. I guess we're applying and we're granularly going deep on a search committee that was told to us by HR had to be 2 people. So let's talk about I mean, we know I wanted it to be 3. It's not 3. So it is what it is. We have 2, but let's apply this to every other ad hoc.
Well, even if
Take
we
the
had,
search committee out.
even
Yeah.
if we had 3, we would still be in violation if we added a 75% rule, because there would be 2 practitioners and 1 public, and that's only 66%. So I see your point that we should just keep adopt it as is.
Okay. So. Well, then someone make a motion.
Do you have a comment on this side?
So, well, I have a question. I mean, so one thing, oh, sorry, pardon me. So one comment was, to Richard's point, again, historically speaking, the practice committee always did have 7 to bring the expertise of the varying practice areas. It was reduced to 4 in order to get that committee to be operational. We just simply didn't have enough. So that, that was a board decision, and I made a note. We need to get the revision date to that in here. I guess what I want to say is that the discussion about the ad hoc committees and that composition, it's to give the flexibility to the appointments, right? Except this is also supposed to be a guideline, right? And so my only thought is that if you do want 75% of licensees to be included on ad hoc committees, which may not include practice areas like a selection committee, or it may include practice areas, such as the supervision standards, right? So again, offering a guideline so that if the people in this room aren't here and appointments are being made. So kind of summarizing all of those different points, it could be that on page 3, that language is added that says ad hoc committees shall include 75% of its members being licensed, or sorry, it's close, but to be, being licensees, excluding 2-member ad hoc committees, right? And again, the I believe the board wanted 3 people on the selection committee. It is an ad hoc committee. 2, you're not meeting it. It's a 1-and-1, right? 1 public, 1 licensee. I think if you provide an exception to that, that does give you the flexibility, whether it's a 2-member EO selection committee or it's a 3-member. The only thing is to that point, the legislative and regulatory affairs one is a standing committee. And so in that regard, I think that should be considered. But I mean, to not worry about, for example, an ad hoc committee not meeting 75% licensees, I think you could make an exception for that. Or not mention it.
I feel like, I'm wondering why we would bother creating language for that scenario when we could just not speak to it, and that allows for the flexibility. The language we have in front of us would allow those things to happen.
So what would what would a motion look like on this?
That you
The-
conversations.
If we view this as proposed language, we could have a motion to adopt the proposed language as is or with modifications, and allow the board to make the staff to make non-substantive changes such as spelling changes in chapter 8 that I see. Would we have a motion to that end?
So moved.
We have a motion from Board Member Whittlesbach?
Second.
We have a motion a second. We need to go to public comment.
This is the moderator. For any members of the public who are on WebEx, you can use the raise hand feature, or if you're audio only, press *3 on your device. And then just confirming, there's no public in the room, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And it appears we also don't have any public comment on WebEx, so we can move on.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further board discussion? Hearing none, thank you for your robust discussion. May we call a vote?
Board Member Cabrera? Oh, he's not participating. Board Member Miller?
Yes.
Board Member Pavlich?
Yes.
Board Member Wittelsbach?
Yes.
Secretary Doe? Yes. Vice President Marcos?
Yes.
And President Bookwalter?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Secretary Doe. Is this a good time for a break? It's 10:32. Let's have let's return at 10:45, please. You on video, but thank you for participating and listening in. We continue to have a majority in person and a minority virtual, and we have a quorum. So I'd like to continue with our meeting. Do we have any objection to that from the board? Very well, thank you. Our next agenda item is number 8, the Ad Hoc Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Response. It says meeting here. That's not quite right. We this meeting has not met because we gave information to the board. The board accepted the recommendations for a survey and for a couple of web pages. And so we don't have any materials on this, but we just wanted an update from the executive officer about progress made towards those 2 tasks that were delegated to the staff.
Thank you. So one of the issues was the board approved survey to licensees to identify, practice area, whether or not the employer provides materials for emergency response. If not, would the licensee like it? So it was a pretty short survey. It was approved at the May meeting. Unfortunately, we do not, we have to renew our SurveyMonkey subscription. Remember there was a expenditure limitation up until June 30th. So we didn't do that then. Now that purchasing and contracting is, can resume at the regular rate, we will have to go through the purchase order process in order to update that survey so it can be sent to licensees and the results reported to the board staff so we can put it in a report format and bring it back in November. And then also we are still looking into getting the various updates made to the board website, to the DCA emergency website, and also following up on with the Emergency Medical Services Authority regarding getting OTs listed, as well as, an updated, a duty statement if in fact they will include them.
Heather, is there option to use Qualtrics, which is free?
Well, I wasn't aware of that, so staff can look into that.
Yeah, so they don't have to pay a price and save some board money, but Qualtrics is usually free to use.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, Qualtrics.
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 That QUAL.
QUALTRICS. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
We'll look into that.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there any further? I think that concludes your report. Sounds
Yes.
like public comment. Do we have public comment on this matter? Do we have first we'll start. We now have a person in the room who may introduce yourself if you wish, and also provide public comment on this agenda item if you would like.
I did, but
Sure.
Great. Introducing myself again, I'm now in person, Micah Pearson, MSOT Program Director here at Stanford University, and no comment on this at this time about disaster preparedness. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Great to meet you. Moderator, we have no further public in the building. Can we ask for public comment online?
Sure, this is the moderator, and for members of the public who are currently on WebEx, you may indicate if you would like to make a public comment on this item by clicking the raise hand icon next to your name, or if you're an audio only participant, pressing *3 on your device to raise your hand. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment.
Thank you. That concludes public comment for agenda item 8. There are no motions or anything to follow up. The staff will continue to follow up with that. Moving on to item number 9, the Executive Officer Selection Committee update. So we have two committee members, our board members here, Christine Littelsbach and Beata Morcos. Christine would like to present, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to give the report on that. First of all, we just want to thank HR. They've been very helpful in helping me and board member Marcos with this process. We were able to meet via video with Olivia Trejo over there. We met on August 13th and we went over the executive officer duty statement and the job announcement. That will go out September 1st. Second, because September 1st is Labor Day. And Beata and I will be talking this weekend about if we have any changes to that announcement that we want, because our deadline for submitting that to HR is August 26th. So that's what we will be doing. In the immediate future, we will be having the option of we will be having, let me back up. After the announcement goes out, we will have hopefully a lot of people applying, and we will be screening those on a weekly basis, Beata and I, and we will be selecting some of those we haven't decided yet. We have the option to have either in-person interviews or webcam interviews, and that will be October 25th to shrink down the selection pool. And then on December 13th, that was when we will bring our final candidates to the full board for in-person interviews. And that's where we are. Do you want to add anything? Yeah.
No. The one thing
the one thing that it was surprising and that we were excited about that we thought we were going to have a scoring system, but we do not. So hopefully this way it's going to be easier based on what we see in front of us.
We're very excited. We hope we have really good candidates, although we are sorry to see Heather go. And I keep asking her, she's sure. She's sure. So we'll keep you updated.
Thank you. Board members, any comments? Thank you for your report. Things are moving along. That's good. Do we have public comment from those present in the room? We do not. May we take public comment on this agenda item from people on WebEx?
Sure, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, we are open for public comment on WebEx. If you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio-only participant, press *3 on your device. All right, it appears there are no requests for public comment on WebEx.
Thank you. We're ready to move on then to agenda item number 10, the Ad Hoc Committee on Supervision Standards update. Board Member Miller, may I ask for you, would you wish to update us on that item?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So first off, just to let you know, the committee has, we have a fairly large committee of really great thinkers and thought partners about the supervision standards from all different walks of practice and education. Mostly, and we're really being given very good input on how to take what we know is in practice and academic practice and to apply it to a regulatory and to put that regulatory lens on it. So we did meet on August 14th. Prior to that, we met on June 26th. So we've met twice since we've had our last board meeting. Just to let you know what's upcoming, following the August 14th meeting, I have gone ahead and prepared the summary. I've given it to our executive officer, Heather Martin. I've given doodle hole dates all the way through September, asking for 2 more dates so that by the time we get to December, we would be coming back to this board with some proposed language. So specifically, there is not an action item before the board today. You're not going to be voting on anything, but just to let you know the highlights of where we're going with our topics. We have done we've really gotten into the weeds on 4180 and 4181. We've also looked at all the supervision standards language, and what we're trying to deliver to the board is we're trying to deliver an intact package that is consistent from each and that addresses the breakdown between supervision for an OTA, an OTR, a capstone student, that being post-professional, the one that is licensed, and also being the one that is entry level. So a couple of the highlights, we've had a presenter come from ACOTE. We had the director of ACOTE come and present to us and go over different language. The board, they've finalized their ACOTE guidelines. They've given us a good foundation upon which to build. Where we've gone with this is to look at, we're into ACOTE accredited versus a pre-accredited program. So those are some of the topics that these educators are pointing out to us, what the licensees might look like and how we have to take that into consideration. We're looking at the word in 4181, the use of the term services and what that encompasses, or prior to when. So there's some formatting and wording that's taking place. A big topic that will be the majority of our next meeting is going to be on the ratios and how they were justified. We also are getting input from other states and on their supervision limitations, and we'll be applying that into our next discussion as well. We've also actually looked at clarity around language that says at any one time, and what does that mean? So we've also, with the help of our public, for example, one of our public members who's on today, Ada Boone Harold, or excuse me, one of our practitioner members who's here in the public, gave us some very good feedback on faculty-led field work versus faculty-led site visits, and really asked us to be clear about outlining the division. She's also been very helpful in making sure that we separate out the OTA from some of this language and really look specifically at each type of licensee that we have under us. We also have and we really have to get clear on the distinction between the entry level versus the post professional. So for our next meeting, we're gonna shore up the ratio. We're gonna get close. We're going to get the language clear around the entry level versus the post professional, and we're really gonna break down the different categories. All of that it's taken a few meetings of very robust discussion to get to the culmination of where we think the action items are that we will bring to the board. I'd also like to just pass the baton to board member Sharon Pavlovich, who is also on that committee, to add anything that you'd like.
Thank you, Board Member Miller. I just want to say thank you to all of the board members. Robust discussion, every idea, notion, everything they bring to the table for our consideration. It's brought a lot of eye-opening moments and continued kind of growth patterns in our conversation. So looking forward to showing this up in our next meeting as close as possible. And thank you for your leadership, Board Member Miller.
If you'd like to go to the public, or the report is done.
Thank you. First, we'll start with the board. Does any board members wish to comment on the report? I'd like to thank Board Member Miller and Committee Chair for your excellent report. It's a complicated, very complex topic, and I'm not an educator myself, so it's a whole different world for me. So reading this was very helpful and enlightening. And it looks like a big slog for you guys, so it's a lot of work to get through it. Board Member Doe, any comments? Any public comment from the people in the room? Micah?
Thank you. Just a brief comment. I'm glad to hear the progress made by this group. And as an educator, we look forward to following this. I think there's been some confusion expressed by the California OT Fieldwork Council about whether the ratios have been finalized or not. So I hope to encourage more participation by fieldwork coordinators at California universities to understand more of the work that you're doing in this committee. Thank you.
President Bookwalter, I failed to also mention, we're very fortunate that we also have Vice President Beata Morcos on this committee, should she like to add anything.
And the only thing is that I really appreciate everybody who serves on that committee because it is so intense and it's so complicated. So yes, it was a lot of discussion and a lot of work. So that's it. And Chairperson Denise, she's doing a great job because it's a lot to handle.
Well, thanks. We're getting there. We're going to get there with this language. I do just want to remind, and thank you again, Dr. Pearson, for your comments. I do want to just remind that, you know, our charge here is to protect the consumer. And so in the protection of the consumer, we have to look at all of this language. And so we really wanted to have the subject matter experts, the academics, really give us this input. At the end of it all, the protection of the consumer will be the driving force of where we land on the ratios. And I really appreciate the 15 to 16 different board members who are in academics who are going this distance with our board. It's not easy, you know, but this is a real marrying of the academic world and legislative language. And I think it's probably a first time we should have a moment of silence. I'm kidding.
Except we still have to get public comment from people on WebEx. So, moderator, could you please?
This is the moderator. And public comment is open on WebEx. And it looks like we do have a request from Ada Boone. And Ada, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 15-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
I just want to thank everyone for really diligent work. And we really do go into detail and weed and in the weeds, and every person's opinion is a contribution. I found this to be a very educational process, especially using the document provided to us from AOTA, summarizing the national picture of supervision standards, finding only that a small percentage of states have any language, and then looking at the diversity of that language. I look forward to participating in the future, and thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Appears there are no further requests on WebEx.
Thank you for your comments, Ada. I really appreciate them. At this time, are you?
Chair, this is board counsel. I just wanted to see if we could ask the moderator to promote Helen Jeffroy, who's been able to attend.
Helen Joffrey?
It looks like I just got promoted. Thank you so much.
Oh, great. Thank you.
It looks like Helen Joffrey's been promoted. Oh, mic check. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you not hear me the first time?
Great.
Oops. I'm here.
I'm talking over you, so.
Great. Well, then I will sign off then, since Helen is here. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for your service.
Take care.
Thank you, Anthony.
Welcome, Helen. Are you on mute?
I'm here.
Oh, okay, good. Great. At this time, we actually forgot to. I don't know. I'm handling it. Thank you. On 10, we are required to accept the minutes from these committee meetings, and we forgot to do that on 7. And I want to make sure we do that on 10, and we can go back to 7 for that. So,
Would you like a motion?
yes, please.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the ad hoc committee on supervision standards update for August 14th and for June 26th. And
Only April and June, because the highlights.
Okay.
Because the highlights have not been approved by the committee as minutes.
Got it.
For August 14th. So April 12th and June 26th, though, we could
Got it.
accept.
Thank you for the redirection. Let me restate that motion. I'll make a motion that we accept the ad hoc committee on supervision standards for the date of April 12th, 2024 and June 26th, 2024.
I second. This is Sharon.
Great. We have a motion from Denise Miller and a second from Sharon Pavlovich. Any board discussion? Any discussion from hearing none? Public comment in the room? None. Hearing none, can we move on to ask for public comment on acceptance of the minutes on WebEx?
This is the moderator for members of the public who are on WebEx. You can use the raise hand feature to indicate that you would like to make a public comment. All right, it appears we have no public comment from WebEx.
Wonderful, thank you. Let's call the question for the
Board Member Cabrera? Board Member Miller?
Yes.
Board Member Palovich?
Yes.
Board Member Whittlesbach?
Yes.
Secretary Dell, yes. Vice President Marcos?
Yes.
And President Miller. Sorry, President Bookwalter.
Yes. Motion carries. May we return at this time for seven. The minutes for October 12th, 2023. Yeah, just the committee. Well, that's the only one because these are highlights, right?
President Bookwalter, can I just ask a procedural question? Lina Doe doesn't have to call Hector Cabrera's name because he's not on the board, on the WebEx, right? He's just an observer, so she doesn't have to call his name in the roll call? Or does
If
she?
the person is absent, I don't know what the procedure is. That's a should Linda Doe call the Cabrera's name?
Yes, because he's absent. Yes.
She
does.
Oh, she does, to
But she
show that
recorded
he's
it.
absent. Okay, thank you.
Do we have a motion to accept the October 12th, 2023 ad hoc committee on non-licensee criteria meeting minutes?
I make the motion for the board to accept the ad hoc committee on non-licensing criteria to serve a board report for August 5th, 2024 meeting minutes, as well as October 12th, 2023.
This is Sharon, I second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Do we have public comment? Do we have further board discussion? Linda? No? Seeing none. Do we have public comment in the room? None. Moderator, can you ask for public comment via WebEx?
This is the moderator, and we have public comment open for members of the public on WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature, or if you're audio only, press *3 on your device. All right, appears there are no requests on WebEx.
Thank you. Let's call the question. Let's take the vote.
Board Member Cabrera?
No,
Board Member
he's
Miller?
absent.
Yeah, but I still have to mention him, right? Board Member Miller?
Yes.
Board Member Palovich?
Yes.
Board Member Whittlesbach? Board Member Whittlesbach?
Yes.
Sorry, Secretary Doe, yes. Vice President Marcos?
Yes.
And President Bookwalter.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Oh, I see. There's a vote. If we're having a discussion about the unusual situation where, unfortunately, Board Member Cabrera is not. There's two levels of participation in the meeting on WebEx. One is as a presenter, and one is a non-presenter. And unfortunately, I'm sorry, Hector, we haven't been able to bring you up as a presenter, which means you're technically absent. So we wouldn't. We can either say Board Member Cabrera absent, or unless we can bring you up. We have one more. We may have a vote here. Or do we have? Yeah. And the next one, so we can just. It's not necessary to call your name if you're absent, and we just note it in the minutes. So that we get anyway. That's a discussion that we were having a minute ago for all of you to see. I apologize for that. Does that make sense, Secretary Doe?
Yes.
On number 12, I believe we're on item number 11 has been canceled because we don't have that language available today. Yes.
I would like to clarify, so when the materials were sent out, this item was not yet removed when the agenda was noticed. Due to the timing of the approval and posting requirements for the board meeting agenda, which occurred prior to the committee meeting, item 11 was a placeholder in the event that there was recommended language resulting from the committee meeting, August committee meeting held under item 10. When the committee met and they're going to meet again, that item online, it is showing as canceled. Unfortunately, the materials had already been sent out. So there was a report from item 10. There was not recommended language. And so I just want to explain that, the reason, that process.
Can we hope for that language in November?
At our November board meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's how I have two people here who can vouch for it. That's how I queued everybody up.
Well, it's a thorny issue, the ratios, so that's not.
Right, I queued everybody up. I've
Great.
already sent the doodle polls, given dates for 2 more meetings to get us to November,
Oh
so
my-
the board has something to vote
Oh
on.
my goodness. Okay, thank you.
I'm actually doing it more for the public who might watch this. And
Yeah.
who's on the committee, who will tell all their friends.
I hope you can wrap it up in one meeting, but 2 meetings if it has.
Well, they really bring up really good.
Yeah, it is a lot. It is.
They really bring up, and we
Yeah.
just want to make sure every T is crossed between the 2 areas, and it's a first time ever. So yeah, I hope so too, but I doubt it.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Moving on to item number 11, discussion and possible action on seeking amendments to business and, I'm sorry, 12. Discussion, I said 11, I meant 12. Discussion and possible action on seeking amendments to Business and Professions Code Section 2570.18, 2570.19, and 2570.32. May I ask Heather Martin to take the lead on this, along with Helen Joffrey?
So this would have been noted earlier in this meeting when item number 5, the meeting minutes were discussed. But due to the recommended changes, I'm gonna tell you now that there was going to be a request to add a note to the May meeting minutes before this item in the last meeting, due to the fact that the items mentioned in today's meeting number 12, those 3 amendments are statutory amendments. And unfortunately, we missed it, but the language used at the May meeting was regulatory amendment language, not language when seeking statutory amendments. And so, again, that note will be provided in the next May meeting minutes, but I'm telling you that now that we are brought back the same exact language and hoping to have language, a motion that would, if you still want to move forward with this, then recommend a motion to direct staff to seek an author for a bill to amend as the language as shown. I will give you an update though, that after our meeting, I did reach out to Senate BNP. I expressed the multiple changes coming up to the board, including, 2 long standing board members being at the end of their grace year, and at the end of this year, me leaving at the end of this year, and then in January, having my replacement start, as well as scheduling this new strategic planning meeting. I a couple phone calls and I was unable to convince them. So we just brought back the same exact language. I will give you an update though. So if they're not willing, I think it's very unlikely we'll get any other legislator to individually / singly, be willing to carry this. So it's my recommendation, you just skip over 2570.19, and only the motions for the language go under 18. And also, if you refer back to the May minutes, the proposed amendments under 2570.32 was not discussed in May due to time constraints. And I'll take any questions, but I hope that clarifies why this is before you again. Seeing none, thank you.
Although 2570.32 was not discussed, perhaps most recently, we have during closed session, we have brought up this issue numerous times. So I don't know about other board members, but I feel like we've weighed in on this and could probably get to decision. It's not clear to me what the ask is, Heather.
If the board still wishes to pursue the amendment shown in Business Professions Code 2570.18, we're requesting a motion that, directs staff to seek an author to affect these amendments that the board
Just
approved.
2570.18,
Correct.
which is page 1 and the top of page 2.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm recommending
May I-
that, yeah.
May I make a motion? I think I have it written. I think I wrote down what she was saying.
Okay.
I move to direct staff to seek an author for a bill to enact the proposed amendments to Business and Professions Codes 2570.18 and 2570.32 as provided in our package.
Can we do 3.2 because it wasn't discussed? I was confused on that one. I thought we could only discuss 1.8. We can discuss 3.2?
We could still discuss it.
I just want to tell you, the minutes this item was tabled for a future meeting to continue discussions. There was not ever a motion about that language. I'm sorry, just to clarify.
Okay.
Originally, I was going to ask for two motions for 2 of the 3 sections here, but since BNP said no, and that's why I'm recommending one motion only, but 25, if you refer to page 19 of the May meeting minutes, this item was discussed. There was not consensus, nor was there direction. It was tabled for a future agenda.
If you don't want to.
Well, it's still here though, so you can't discuss it because it's on the.
So we could go a couple of ways. We could second it and then discuss it before a vote, or
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. And now it's up for board discussion.
I just want to know if we're doing 2570.18, why wouldn't we just do 2570.19 because it's just a year? Why wouldn't we just vote on that?
Well, because I just advised that no one's going to carry this bill. That's what I was told. That was my update. That's why I'm saying I'm not requesting a motion on that.
We've already learned from the Business and Professions Committee that they're not willing to entertain the changes that are in BPP and section 2570.19 by changing they're not willing to push out our sunset for one more year based on the reasons that
So it has to remain 2027. Now I got it. Okay.
So we're stuck.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
So it would be pointless to ask. So that's why I just selected in my motion 2570 the change to 2570.18 and 2570.32. Do people anybody have comments on the proposed language?
So my understanding is the fee increase is just the cost to the board, period.
Yeah, okay. And President Bookwalter, just if we can correct the spelling for non-substantive changes on
We can't quite hear you.
yeah, on 2570.32, just to correct the spelling for therefore, to add the E at the end, since it's the last under E, bolded, underlined, second to the last sentence.
We're not doing that.
Yeah, we just said 2570.32.
But I think I might be correct about an E.
I just looked it up. Is it right?
Oh, is it right? Well, would they check that?
Yeah, we will check that.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we'll check that. Yeah.
Staff will
So,
check that. before.
Noted. Yeah, change noted. That's good.
so we do have a motion in a second, right?
This is
Yeah.
discussion.
Do we? But we're having board discussion.
Yeah, I did.
Do we have an objection to the fee itself or the language that to allow us to charge a fee? Hearing no further board discussion, shall we ask the public for comment in the room? All right, we have no public comment here. Moderator, can we check for public comment via WebEx?
Just as a moderator, and public comment is open for members of the public on WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, you can use the raise hand icon or press *3 on your device if you are connected audio only. All right, and it appears we have no requests for public comment.
Okay. Let's call the vote.
Board Member Miller?
Yes.
Yes. Board Member Palovich? I didn't hear anything.
Yes.
No. Board Member Woodlesbach?
Yes.
Yes. Secretary Dow, yes. Vice President Marcos?
Yes.
Yes. And President Bookwalter?
Yes. Yes. Motion carries.
Just in follow-up as a reminder that if I'm to seek an author for a bill, I have to have the rationale and justification for the proposed amendments in point 3.2. And so we have the language from prior discussions about the regs, regulatory amendment, establishing in statute the charging the fee, and the follow-up language for the regulations. What we don't have though is any rationale or justification provided to staff, because it was not fully discussed, was the new language provided on page 4. The language regarding the petition, and I believe Helen was going to provide an explanation regarding the use of evidence and how that would require the in-person hearing rather than giving the board more flexibility. And that's part of the reason there's this additional language that's at the very end of amended of E. The bolded strikeout is at the beginning. That is the current language. Below it is the new language prepared by Helen that we'd wanted the board to consider to, again, give more flexibility in scheduling of hearings. Might want to ask Helen about.
Helen, would you care to speak to this issue?
So give me just 1 second. Sorry. This is specifically which one? The 19?
It's 570.32. It's the language about petitioners. They'll be given the opportunity to present either written or oral argument before the board.
Okay, correct. So we've discussed this last time, and so what we want is to submit change this to basically the default language of the Administrative Procedure Act, so that the board can either hold a hearing, they can hold a review of on the record, a written hearing essentially. Or even if they go to written, if the written is not sufficient, they can then ask for a hearing. But we would use the language that's in the APA.
So in short, this would bring alignment to our legal language with other boards, and also allow for a written hearing that doesn't currently, instead of requiring an in-person hearing.
Correct.
Does that give staff direction?
Yes, flexibility.
The flexibility. Yeah.
And alignment.
Yes.
Okay.
And efficiency, because in-person hearings are well.
All right.
You
perfect.
can include cost savings if we feel that that's
that's another,
because I think it would provide for a potential cost savings, which is very much on the minds of the state these days.
now we have the record. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Is
I
that
agree with
enough?
what I was saying.
That's, yep.
Thank you, Helen, for that.
And I could add that in addition to cost savings to the board, it can also allow for maximum flexibility for the petitioner.
Yes, good point.
Board and petitioner. Gotcha. Flexibility was first, board and petitioner. Gotcha.
Yeah, avoiding an inconvenience. Yeah, that's very good. We can brings that item to a close, and that concludes the agenda that we have scheduled for today. It's 11:28. We have a hearing at 2:00. We probably should all be back by 1:30 to make sure the hearing is set up by 2. if we back that up to 12:30, we have what we could have a 2-hour lunch, or we could do a try to bring in something from tomorrow's agenda to talk about. Do you want to do?
Yeah.
Maybe we could take the executive officer's report today and then break for lunch.
Was just a point. Can I have 1 second to ask the executive officer something?
Sure. We'll take a 5-minute break. Now for lunch. We're going to return at 1:30 for a 2 o'clock in-person hearing. So please do be back at 1:30 so that we can all be ready for that and be timely for the administrative law judge and the petitioner, of course, who's going to be with us. After a lunch break and for a hearing here with the administrative law judge Kimberly Belvedere, Rondell. Is it Bakey or Bat? Bake. It is Bake. Thank you, Ryan, attorney, Attorney General's office, and the Board of Occupational Therapy. Should we, Secretary Doe, are you present?
Yes, I'm here.
Do we need to call the meeting? Why don't we do that?
Okay. Board Member Cabrera? Still absent.
He's absent.
Board Member Miller?
Here.
Board Member Palovich?
Here.
Board Member Whittlesbach?
Here.
Secretary Doe here. Vice President Marcos?
Here.
And President Bookwalter.
Here. We have a quorum. Thank you. At this point, I'd like to hand it off to our administrative law judge. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, I guess, good afternoon, everybody. So we're already on the record with the court reporter. I just want to make sure, and I'll make you repeat your names and everything when you introduce yourselves for the record, but I just want to make sure I can pronounce everybody's names correctly. So I know Mr. Paredes already, and if you could just identify yourself, sir, so that I know who everybody is.
Ryan Elliott, counsel for the petitioner. Shall I repeat myself? Yes.
Rondell Bake.
Okay, so that's what I was asking. I was glad that you asked before, because it looks like there's been a name change since this filing, because I have Rondell McKee.
Correct. I'm going back to my maiden name. I got divorced in this last year, and I don't legally have it back to my maiden name yet. So it's
Okay,
still
so
McKee.
So for purposes of this decision, you are still Rondell Janine McKee.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. That helps me. Okay, so for purposes of this hearing, like I said, we are already on the record. It is in the matter of the petition for reinstatement of Rondell Janine McKee, also known as Bake, B-A-K-E or B-A-K-K-E?
B-A-K-E.
B-A-K-E, okay. Okay, it's before the Board of Occupational Therapy, Department of Consumer Affairs, State of California. The case number for the board is 2024-000744. The OAH case number is 2024-060981. It is August 22nd, 2024. I'm Administrative Law Judge Kimberly Belvedere. May have the appearance of the representatives, beginning with the Deputy Attorney General.
Your Honor, board members, Lauro A. Paredes with the Attorney General's Office, representing the people of the state of California.
And Mr. Elliott again.
Ryan Elliott, representing the petitioner.
Okay, so prior to going on the record, I received exhibits.
We also have an ear intake valve here, so I'm having trouble hearing as well. Could speak up and it's the microphone. I think we sorry.
Okay, so nobody use your inside voice. Okay, use your your outside voice. Okay, so it's okay. It's okay. Some of the voices. Okay. Okay, well, we should be okay. We'll just talk a little louder. For the court reporter, if you cannot hear, go ahead and interrupt so that I know, because I don't know unless you tell me. Okay. Yeah, we'll just talk louder. We'll use our outdoor voices for today. Okay, so I have two exhibits. Exhibit 1 is the second amended notice of hearing. Exhibit 2 is probably what the materials the board has. That's the petition and all the other documents that were submitted with the petition. So I'm assuming no objections from anybody if I mark those as exhibits 1 and 2 and admit them.
No objections. No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, so exhibits 1 and 2 are admitted. And so what we're going to do, obviously, it's a petition for reinstatement. So Ms. Bake, you have the burden of proof, and your attorney has probably explained all of this to you. He's going to go ahead and give an opening statement. But what I would like to do first, even though obviously she has the burden, I would like Mr. Paredes to give a brief opening statement, just for my benefit and for the board's benefit, so we know the history of the case and how we got to where we are today.
Okay.
Okay. So Mr. Paredes, whenever you're ready.
Your Honor, board members, this is a petition for reinstatement hearing, OAH case number 2024-06-0981, agency case number 2024-000-744. My name is Lauro A. Paredes. I am appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California under Business and Professions Code section 2760.1 and Government Code section 11522. This is a case that's been hanging around the board for a while. The case goes back to an accusation that was filed on April 22nd, 2019. There was a decision from the ALJ on December 9th, 2020, I believe, and then an official adopted decision April 21st, 2020. So the decision by this board on April 21st, 2020, April 21st, 2020, placed respondent on probation. The reason she was placed on probation was a series of incidents. One incident occurred August 24th, 2017. We're going to go into details. I'm just going to give you a brief outline. On August 24th, 2017, respondent was supervising a child, did not do a very good job, ignored the child, and the child ended up falling for itself. Fell and hurt itself. In June 15th, 2017, there was a separate incident at a different facility respondent was working at where respondent was found to be intoxicated, and an incident that occurred on September 29th, 2017 at yet another facility. These information is outlined in the records, particularly the board's decision, and the information you have in front of you has an original decision by the administrative law judge that begins on page, if you're looking at it digitally, on page 41. That might be helpful. Again, because of this decision and these actions, respondent was placed on probation. Respondent was unable for a variety of reasons to complete that probation, and their license was revoked. This petitioner comes before the board on an application dated April 15th. That's a decision of the board. The application is a petition for reinstatement that begins on your digital documents, page 8, and it is signed by a respondent on May 22nd, but it's on digital page 16. So internally paginated is page 10, and then page 16, we have the information. That is the background on this case. Your Honor, is there anything else you would like at this time?
Okay, so now, Mr. Elliott, we'll turn it over to you if you would like to make an opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Your Honor, board. I'd first like to ask for your patience and forgiveness. This is not my primary practice and not a proceeding to which I am accustomed. If I fumble my way through this, again, thank you for your patience. We're here today. I'm here today in support of the petitioner. She has informed me, and I've done my research into the background of this case and understand the events that have occurred, and have worked with Rondell to understand where she has come from that point. And we come here today humbly to express her regret, her acknowledgement of her responsibility for her actions, and to share with you the steps she's taken from those dates until now, and why she is ready to return to a profession that she is very passionate about and sees as her calling. So in support of her petition, we have a couple of additional exhibits we hope to enter today. We have a letter of support from her sponsor through AA, and a letter of support from her therapist that both speak to her readiness to return to this profession.
Your Honor, I've seen both of those documents and I have no objection to them. I believe respondent has physical copies. Please support it.
Okay, there's no objection. The problem is we need to somehow get them uploaded to Case Center. Is there a way that we can, I mean, I don't need it to happen now. It can happen after the hearing, but is there a way we can get that done by the end of the day today, or are we gonna need?
I can ask somebody in my office to do that number.
Okay, so which documents do you have? Are they separate documents or all in one document?
Two separate letters, two documents.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, who's gonna upload those? Is he gonna upload those, or are you gonna? Okay, so what I'll do is I'll leave the record open through the rest of the day. Mr. Paredes will upload those documents. I'll identify them with the appropriate exhibit letter, and then I'll just put in the decision that they were admitted after the fact. So whatever exhibits those are, I could just call them, I guess, A, B, and C, or do you want to just call them collectively Exhibit A? Okay, just upload them in one bunch. So just once that way it'll make it easier. So Exhibit A is admitted, even though I haven't seen it yet. We will take care of that. Now, you did say you have copies for the board members, right?
Two, yes.
Okay, so why don't you go ahead and make sure they get those, and then I'll make sure those are in Case Center before the board gets the final decision. So while they're doing that, if you could just go ahead, Miss Bake, and raise your right hand. Okay, do you solemnly swear or affirm, under penalty of perjury, that the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and do you need a minute, or are you okay?
I'm fine. This is a very terrible time in my life, and so I apologize. It just brings up a lot of
Okay.
Good stuff.
If you need to take a break, let us know.
I'll be fine.
Okay. So what we're gonna do, so you have the burden, it's a petition for reinstatement. So your attorney is gonna ask you a few questions, or he may want you to testify in narrative format. It is up to him how he wants to do that. The important thing is for you to tell the board why they should reinstate your license. We call that rehabilitation. That's the fancy legal word that we use for that. So in other words, by clear, you need to show to the board that they should reinstate your license. Followed by that, Mr. Paredes may have a few questions for you. And then when he's done, the board may have some questions, and then we'll give you a final word. Okay? So with that, whenever Mr. Elliott is ready, you can proceed how you would like, whether you'd like to ask her questions or if you'd like to just have her testify in a narrative format. It's up to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. So as we've begun to establish, the reason we're here today has roots in one of the most difficult parts of your life. Acknowledge that we're going to continue to revisit some of these tough memories for you. It's going to be emotional and awful. Take your time. I know that you've taken some notes to help clarify and make sure that you can communicate effectively through these tough emotions. And as the court has said, if there's any moment that you need a break, please do ask for it. We've heard a little bit of a summary of what brought us here today, but I think it would help the board to hear from your point of view what led to the events of 2016, 2017 that eventually brought about the revocation of your license.
So at that time, my dad was recently diagnosed with Fragile X tremor ataxic syndrome. And following that, we all got tested. It's a terminal diagnosis. And I am fragile, but I am a carrier, all of that. It led me to a lot of anxiety and depression, which I sought a psychiatrist to receive help for that. I was prescribed medication for anxiety and depression. Unfortunately, at the time, I was still drinking quite heavily in the evenings. I am an alcoholic, and the mixture of the two was not good, and it was a very bad time in my life, and I just kept pushing through when I should not have.
So is it correct to state that but for the combination of your abuse of alcohol and the high dosage of medication, you would have not acted in the way that you did? That's it is.
Yes.
So I know that you've had a greater career than just these dark moments. Would you like to take a moment to talk about some of the better experiences you've had as an occupational therapist?
Yes, I got into the field. My sister was aiding a boy with autism and she took him to OT. That's how I learned about the field. Following graduating for my undergraduate, I applied to USC and became an OT, always knowing that I would work with children. It's my passion. I was really good at it. I had parents waiting for me to be their therapist. I treated mostly under 3. I worked with OTs, PTs, and speech therapists, and I did that for almost 12 years. And it is truly my passion. It's what I do. I am really good at it. I love working with kids. I love helping the parents. And, you know, a big piece of me has been gone since I haven't do that.
Now, I know that this was discussed in the 2019 hearing as part of the record, but I think it bears repeating today. If you were faced with a difficult situation like you were back then, for example, a child is laying on the ground, refusing to cooperate, refusing to move, how would your training and education lead you to treat that child in a difficult
Yeah, with a clear mind, which I did not have at that moment, I would never have moved the child forcibly. And it was, you know, a very bad decision. I should have never done that. I know better. At this point, I would have let him continue his tantrum, be sure that he was safe, not hurting himself, not hurting others, and wait and re-engage him with another activity.
As established earlier, your license was revoked in the original hearing and you were placed on probation. It was determined that you failed to comply with that probation. Would you like to tell the board some of the reasons that you were unable to comply with the terms of probation at that time?
Yes, at that time, my main focus was my sobriety. At the time, I think I had been sober for 2 years. The financial hardship was insurmountable as far as the fees of $15,000, the private pay expenses for a psychiatrist evaluation, a psychological evaluation, and I believe there were other things that I didn't have health insurance because I didn't have a license. And it was during COVID. And I really just felt completely helpless in that situation. And I did not follow through.
So is it fair to say at that moment you needed to focus on yourself?
Yes, that was my main goal at that time, staying sober. I've gone through many other large, life events as we all do. And I have continued to stay sober. My sobriety date is still the same, May 12th, 2018. And, financially, I still have a lot of struggles. I work part-time as an aide, and that is still a hurdle for me, I would definitely say.
Okay. So I've been informed about this is the proper format for it, but um, if the board is willing to work with you on the balance owed, would you like to request some forgiveness payment plan, a combination of the two, to address the amount owed to reinstating license?
Yes, I would greatly appreciate either a payment plan or a reduction or both, if that is at all possible.
Hold on a second. Ms. Bruce, do we know what the costs are? Of 15,000 exactly?
Let me say that again for the record. It's 15,000. Initially, it was 30,000 at the hearing. The ALJ reduced the cost to 15,000. That was adopted by the board. Once respondent was on probation, there were no payments made.
Okay, thank you.
That behind us, let's take a more positive look forward and talk a little bit about why would you like to return to paying vaccination therapies?
It truly is what I do best. I'm very good at it, with the exception of these instances in the time in my life. I have and maintain really good relationships with the parents that I did treat still. The boy that I'm in aid for right now, actually, I did treat him back at the time at South Coast Therapy. I am not an occupational therapist. I'm truly just an aide, and I help with homework and things of that nature. I miss it incredibly. I feel a huge part of me is gone because I don't get to treat. I'm really good with the kids. I'm good with the parents, and I miss doing continuing ed and learning about the field.
And for the board's sake, can you tell the room why you believe you're ready to return to occupational?
Yes, even though this isn't very long ago, to me, it does. I feel like a completely different person. I have been sober for over 6 years. I attend therapy weekly. I will continue to. I have been going to AA since 2012. And just like anybody's journey, it hasn't been completely linear, but I had relapses at the beginning. But
not anymore. I am more mature. I am more grounded. I am more able to face the things that happen and move forward. I'm a different person.
So I think there are two key components to journey that you've been on. Let's start with the first and the time. Tell us a little bit about the role AA played bringing to this meeting.
Yeah, it played a huge role in my recovery. I had to look at a lot of things in my life. I've gone through all the steps. I started off with a woman named Kathy. I moved on to a gentleman named Ronrico because at the meetings I could just hear what he had to say. We just clicked and it seemed like he was giving me information that I really needed to save my life. And so he took me through all the steps. I've gone to hundreds of meetings. I've spoke at meetings. I continue to attend. I don't go weekly. Like I said, right now, my focus is more therapy based. I go to AA when I need to, or when I feel things become more stressful and I need to speak to people that understand where I've been and where I've come from.
So I'd like to just take a moment to note the exhibits that we added today. The first one is a letter from the sponsor, attesting to his work with her and to her spring. That's that. Sure. So the second component to bringing you to today is being ready to change the has been both therapies, but tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, like I said, life doesn't stop. I've gone through many traumatic events since this court case that we're talking about. That was quite traumatic. I lost a young pet. I have divorced my second husband. I live with my mom right now, and I'm doing everything that focuses first and foremost on me and my mental health. And how I get through the day. I work part-time just for the reason of needing to just keep things very simple and very basic. If I were to be granted my license back, I would want to start part-time. I would want to work back into the workforce and, not push myself. I became quite burnt out working in the clinic and I should have listened to myself and I should have stopped rather than keep pushing forward. And I would never do that again.
So I hear that you've faced and confronted some personal challenges over the past year or so. What tools have you taken from therapy that allowed you to maintain your sobriety, maintain your personal health while facing difficult periods of life?
Having somebody outside my family, outside AA, has been really helpful. I meditate, I journal daily, I go on hikes almost every day to clear my mind. I just do things differently. I'm much more present. I work on breathing exercises and all the things we used to kind of tell our kids to do too. I believe there's a reason why I went into OT. I can understand some of the things that we're trying to teach other people, and I very much relate to it, and I get it.
So the second page of the exhibit entered today is a letter from Sprague's therapist, attesting to their relationship and working relationship together, therapy, and the therapist noting that seeing Rhonda's work, growth, and commitment to sobriety, she believes that this book is that's what she is with to. So that one last question and then turning to work after recovery can be very stressful. Establish growth and have some tools in place just to really cement the idea that do you have a return work plan? Do you have a plan for addressing the additional stress taking on this load?
Yeah, I truly would not change much that I have in my life right now. As far as I want to continue part-time, I'm going to continue my weekly sessions with my therapist. I will continue going to AA when needed. I have my family support. I have support of my friends and the woman I work with. Like I said, her little boy has Down syndrome. He's 11 now. She very much trusts me with him. We have a great relationship. And honesty, I am first and foremost honest. I let her know what happened. She was willing to give me another chance and work with me. Really, honesty is all I have at this moment with this type of situation. And I would just reach out to my employer, hopefully that I would get, and let them know the situation and that I want to slowly ease back into the profession.
I have no further questions, sir.
Okay, so before we go to Mr. Paredes, you said you work part-time. Could you just tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I help with a little boy with Down syndrome. I sometimes pick him up from school. I usually meet at the house. I help with homework. I help with daily things like getting the snack together for the next day. Picking out his clothes. I take him to tennis, things of that nature. All after school stuff.
Okay, and how long have you been doing that?
I believe I started in right after Halloween, so November of 2024. No,
Of
2023.
2023?
Yes.
Okay. And I think, well, I'm looking at the letter, you said you go to this therapy once a week?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Paredes, do you have any questions?
I do, Your Honor. Your Honor, may I sit in the well?
Go ahead.
My apologies to some of the board members who will have my back. Ms. McKee. Ma'am, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I want to start back a little bit backwards. What's your background? Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Crescenta Valley High School.
Okay. And you said you went to USC?
I did for OT school.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Orange Coast Junior College. I transferred to UCI.
Okay. So walk me through that. How long were you at Orange Coast?
I probably was there 2.5, 3 years. I think I didn't do a full load. I transferred to UCI. I want to say another 2 years. Probably took me about 5 years to get through undergrad.
Okay.
And then I took about maybe a 1.5 years off, applied to USC, and went there for OT school.
And then walk me through what happens. I'm sure the rest of the board knows, but walk me through what happens after OT school.
After OT school, I ended up getting my first job through my final field work for USC. I worked at ICEC for 3 years.
What is ICEC?
Intervention Center for Early Childhood.
Okay. And ballpark, how long were you there? When and how long?
About 3 years.
When was that?
I would say 2006 to 2009.
And what were your primary responsibilities there?
I was doing group therapy and I was doing some individual therapy, and I also did evaluations, and that's about it. Mostly group therapy.
So this is through 2009, you said ish.
Yes, I got a job at South Coast Therapy in 2009.
What was your client base, your patient base? Who were you working with?
At ICEC, it was under 3.
Then after 2009, what did you do?
I went to South Coast Therapy, and pretty much the same thing, not group therapy. It was individual therapy. I saw 7 clients a day, sometimes 8, mainly early intervention. I have a lot of feeding experience. I did a lot of feeding therapy, sensory integration therapy, and fine motor NDT.
So that's 2009 to approximately when?
Well, it was, I would say, until I think 2017 was when I got let go for these instances.
Okay, well, let's start there. So 2017, we have one instance that took place in August 24th, 2017, right about that date. Do you remember that?
Well, if you tell me the instance, like I said, this was not a great time in my life. So there's a lot of attempting to piece back together.
So this is, so in August of 2017, you had been at South Coast approximately 7 years at that point.
Yeah, I think I was there for quite some time. Yes.
So you had an incident where, and now for anyone who wants to follow along, I am looking at the ALJ's proposed decision, and I am on, digitally it's page 44. It's page 4 of the decision internally, if that's helpful to me. All right. Actually, let me backtrack. That is page 43, so page 3. All right, April 24th, 2017, you were at South Coast, and you were tasked with working with a child who had a history of falling. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Walk me through that scenario. What happened?
I believe what happened is she wears a helmet. I believe we were all around the mat table. I think she was engaging in some toys. I believe she started to walk away, and I don't think I went and facilitated her quickly enough. I believe she fell. I don't recall her hurting herself, but like I said, if that is what's in there,
Well, no, I'm not interested in what's going in there, at least not yet. What do you recall? Because you
I
said
recall not being attentive. I recall being not engaged with the child as I should have been. And I recall her walking off. And I think one of the other therapists, there was always many therapists around, brought her back to me.
Okay. Do you recall any of the therapists telling you that your charge was walking away?
That I was charged with walking?
That the child
was walking away? Probably. I don't recall the whole thing. I mean, I feel like somebody probably said she's walking away, go get her.
Yeah, but you don't recall that right now. That's just, you think that happened.
I don't. I think that happened.
And do you recall anyone telling you not to play on your watch, iPhone, anything like that?
I do remember somebody saying, don't look at your watch. At the time, my husband, I have alarms on there. He had young onset Parkinson's. I believe it was going off and I turned it off. I recall that, but the whole instance is quite.
Let me go to a second incident, the one on June 15th, 2017. When you left South Coast Therapy, was it approximately how long after this incident in April did you leave South Coast Therapy?
I believe I was let go quickly following that instance we were talking about. This would be a time that I should have listened to myself and stayed unemployed.
And,
I continued to get employment.
and at some point, did you work for Jackson J Therapy in Long Beach, California?
Yes, I did, very briefly.
And on June 15th, 2017, there was an incident there. Do you remember any of that incident?
I remember large brushstrokes of the incident. I believe that I was not there very long. They didn't really have many clients for me to see. I went to lunch. I believe I drank at lunch. I believe I took Xanax at lunch, and they called the fire authorities, I believe, to come remove me. That's all I remember.
Okay. Ma'am, you keep saying, I believe. And is that because you don't remember, or what? Why
I
are you
do not remember the whole detail of it. I remember what I'm telling you, that I went out, I believe I drank at lunch, and I took Xanax, and I came back to work.
Do you understand the distinction between I believe I did something and I did it? Like, so you're not sure that you did?
No, I'm sure that I did. Yes.
There was another incident on or about September 29th, 2017, and that was at Children's Therapy Center.
Right.
All right. And And that was on the morning of October 3rd, 2017. What were you doing at Children's Therapy Center? What was your job there?
I was a school district occupational therapist and I also worked in the clinic.
And what happened at that job? What happened on that incident?
I
If you recall.
was intoxicated and I showed up to the school intoxicated.
Were you intoxicated? How long had you been working at Children's Therapy Center? Ballpark.
Not very long.
Weeks, months?
And not even months. I would guess weeks. Those two jobs were very brief.
And the incident that I'm talking about at Children's Therapy Center was on October 3rd, 2017. Was that the only time that you were intoxicated at that job?
Yes. I was still drinking quite heavily at night. Yes.
Now we're going to back to Jackson J therapy on June 15th, 2017. That was the incident where you say that you remember drinking and having Xanax. Was that the only time that you had been drinking at that job?
Yes.
I'm going to go back to the April 24th, 2017 incident, the one at South Coast with the child that we've talked about. Were you intoxicated at that time?
I was not intoxicated with alcohol. I was on a lot of prescription meds at that time.
Knowing what you know now, were you in a position to the prescription medication you were on let you be an effective and safe occupational therapist at that time?
No, not the Xanax.
Right now, how long have you been going to AA?
Since 2012.
And if you had to guesstimate the number of meetings that you've been to, so since 2012, you said, right?
Hundreds.
Hundreds of meetings. And what is your sobriety date?
May 12th, 2018.
And some of the terms used in Alcoholics Anonymous are working the steps. Have you worked the steps?
Yes, I have.
What's your favorite step?
Oh, favorite meaning the most effective or
The most important to you, the most effective?
you always need to reassess how you're doing in life. They call it a step 5 inventory, re-inventorying how you're doing, speak with somebody about it, reassess.
Can you tell me what step 5 is verbatim?
Verbatim? Oh, geez. No, not verbatim.
Okay, how about step 7? Can you tell me what that one is verbatim?
The 7th step is continuing to do the work. I mean, I do not know them verbatim. I have read the book many, many times, but I do not know them verbatim.
Do you know any of them verbatim? Any of all?
I know many prayers verbatim. I know, the 5th step prayer is, I mean, I know things. Yes. Do you want me to repeat them?
No, ma'am. I want to know if you know any of the 12 steps of AA by heart.
Well, the first one is admit that you are powerless over alcohol. The second is to.
I'm asking something. I'm looking at a list, and some things vary online. The one that I've looked at repeatedly says, step 1 is we admitted we were powerless over alcohol.
Correct.
And that our lives have become unmanageable.
Correct.
Okay. So you left off the unmanageable part. You remember that?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And step 5, it says, admitted to God or a higher power, to ourselves, and to another human being that the exact nature of our wrongs.
Correct.
That's a little different than what you said step 5 was. It was a continuing inventory is what you said.
Okay, that's probably 7th step work. It's, yeah, I don't know verbatim. I have gone through the steps several times.
Right. And at AA, do people discuss the steps?
We discuss the steps, yes.
And at the hundreds of meetings you've been to, have they discussed the steps?
Yes.
Have you done any continuing education since the last time you were before the board regarding occupational therapy?
No, I haven't.
Would you be willing to do continuing education?
Yes, I would.
Ma'am, I understand this is really a very honest and difficult thing that you're doing. I really appreciate that. I don't want to get into medication that you're on or history at this point, but in very broad strokes, are you currently on any medication? Yes or no?
Yes.
So you said previously that you thought that being on Xanax and being an OT didn't go together. All that?
Correct. I am not taking any sort of medication like that.
Okay, so there are no medication that you currently are on that you think affects you psychologically or physically to the point where you could not be effective OT.
No. I purposefully have stayed off medication since these instances. I have gone to a psychiatrist and she suggested Zoloft. I just started taking it a few months ago. I would never take Valium or Xanax or anything like that ever again because then I wouldn't be sober.
So you said you started going to AA in 2012,
Right.
and obviously you've had some relapses, and
Yes.
so your sobriety date is 2018.
Right.
Your sponsor is a Mr. McKee, is that correct?
Yep.
Is he any relation to you or your ex-husband?
He is my ex-husband.
So your AA sponsor is he your current ex-husband or the one you're current? The
He is my
previous
current ex-husband, the one I just left a year ago.
Okay, let me ask. I understand, but I want to make the records clear. When you say Mr. McKee, are you officially divorced from him?
Yes.
Okay. As of when, ballpark?
May, I believe.
Of this year.
Yes.
And he has continued in your sponsor relationship through the divorce and after the divorce.
Yeah, I mean, he is the one that I go to for talking through this stuff. He's 36 years sober. So, yeah, we maintain a friendly relationship. I still help him because he has young onset Parkinson's, but yeah, he was my sponsor. It's not a conventional type of situation. But it is what it is. He helped me. He lived with me for a very long time before we ended up being a couple because I could not stay sober. And so I needed somebody there with me.
Ma'am, again, I understand that the whole point of Alcoholics Anonymous is that it's a very humbling and personal experience. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And do you understand how having your ex-husband as your sponsor kind of blurs some of those lines potentially?
He is the most, I mean, he would never ever write a letter if he thought that I was not sober. He would be the first to be ringing the bell saying she's not sober. So actually it's a pretty good clarification of my sobriety because he continues to maintain that I am sober and I am.
And your therapist is who?
Her name is Deborah Sierra.
And how long have you been in therapy?
Since I want to say October. Am I right? October or December? December. I reached out to her in October. She couldn't see me until December.
Oh, 2023.
Yes.
And is Miss C, is your therapist aware of why you were initially revoked or why your license was revoked?
Yes, she is fully aware.
And how did she become fully aware?
I told her. I told her the whole instance. I have been speaking with her. This is one of the worst things that's ever happened to me. So I try to process it. I've told her I'm in the process of attempting for reinstatement. I mean, we talk about it.
And so she's familiar with all the three instances that we talked about.
Yes, she is.
Are you familiar with the term triggers as in something that will trigger your addiction?
Yeah.
In your own words, what does that mean to you?
It means something that makes you feel quite heightened and feeling like you're grasping at things.
And what are your triggers, ma'am?
I'm a very anxious person. I always have been. I believe that I used to drink heavily just to kind of not feel that. I work with anxiety a lot.
So just anxiety, you think stress would be one of your triggers?
You know, I actually deal with stress pretty well. I would say sometimes day-to-day things can be challenging, not anymore, but they used to be.
So then, currently then, like
Currently, what are my triggers? I mean, honestly, I know that I will never drink again. I have gone through some massive upheavals in my life over the last 6 years, and never once did I think drinking is going to solve this. It truly has. It is not an option, and it's not something I will ever do again.
Okay. And so, at some point previously to 2018, maybe even to 2012, drinking was one of your coping mechanisms.
It was the coping mechanism. Yes.
And what are your coping mechanisms currently?
I hike a lot, about 4.5 miles almost every day. I breathe, I swim, I journal, I read. I will go to AA if I feel quite anxious. I use AA. I don't believe that AA should be the only thing keeping one sober. I believe it is a wonderful foundation of things. But if you start needing to go to AA every day to stay sober, I feel like that's a problem too. I believe that you're supposed to start living life and going when you feel that you need it. Now, everybody may look at that differently, but that's how I see it.
And all right. And so, do you disagree with people who go to AA every week?
No, I don't, because everybody has their own thing.
I have a couple of questions about your application. So now I'm looking at attachment 2, and it's exhibit 2 within that attachment. It's attachment 2, and it starts on page 8, the digital page 8. You have access to that, or is your attorney have access?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And did you fill this out?
Yes, I did.
And this is obviously an important thing for you and a difficult thing for you, so you took it serious.
Yes.
Oh, one question. Do you have any other professional licenses with the state of California?
No.
Sorry, that was top. All right. One of the questions was criminal convictions. Have you had any negative contact with law enforcement since your hearing with OH?
No, I've never had contact with law enforcement.
And you've never been arrested for any violations or anything like that?
No.
All right. So I'm looking now at page 7. and that is in electronic page 14, but it's a application page 7.
Okay.
All right. So in here it says, how many meetings per week do you attend? It
Yes.
says 1 to 2.
Yes. I am not attending 1 to 2 right now. I believe at the time I probably was still doing, when I first left my husband in July of last year,
July 2023.
I went back to meetings about 1 to 2 times a week when I moved back in with my mom and had a huge transition in life. I probably went 1 to 2, sometimes 3 times a week for 3 to 4 months. Right now, I am focusing on the therapy, and so I do the therapy 1 time a week, kind of in lieu, but it doesn't mean that I don't have a group that I could go to.
How far is the group from your house?
It's about 20 minutes.
Ma'am, so I'm going to turn you to a couple of pages later, which is page 9, where you signed it. You see
Okay.
that?
Yes.
Okay. That's May 22nd, 2024. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that's your signature.
Yes.
I'm going to bounce you back to where we were before. Is on page 7, you said that in May, the question was, how many meetings per week do you attend? And as of May of this year, 2024, you said you were attending 1 to 2 meetings. Were you attending 1 to 2 meetings of AA in May of 2024?
No, I was not. I wasn't trying to be.
I'm not saying you were, but
Yeah.
I'm asking why then did you fill in 1 to 2 meetings per week
Well,
when you
I
weren't
believe
attending 1 to 2 meetings per week?
I do not have an answer. I wasn't trying to be. I mean, I will go if I feel that I need to go. I mean, I have a group. I have gone. I have spoken there. I spoke there in August. You know, I kind of got into therapy and I stopped going 1 to 2 times a week. I mean, I still attend AA. That's probably what I felt that I was writing. I mean, I still do attend AA. So, you know, I wasn't trying to be facetious or anything of that nature.
But you understand how that could have, that's not good. That is interpreted as you stating that as of May of this year, you go 1 to 2 times a year. You understand that that's what you wrote in.
I understand. Yes.
And if this was a clinical setting and you were charting, that would be grave error, right?
Correct.
That's all
I'm not here to create a false narrative on anything.
I'm not saying you aren't. Just trying to just why I'm giving you the opportunity to discuss it, and I'm going to point that out. I had a question. And at this time, I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Elliott.
Just want to give you one chance to clarify, because I think that going through this process has been very emotionally charged. Even filling out this petition on your own and prior to me working with you as counsel, specifically on filling this out. When you read this question about how many meetings per week do you attend, did you read that question as how many meetings per week you were attending that week?
No, I didn't. I really wasn't trying to
So
say it.
can you explain when you were filling this out, were you looking into that as a broader perspective of what you would do on average, or
Well, you know,
what you were planning to do?
yeah, I tried to reinstate, I want to say 3 months prior. I was supposed to have the hearing 3 months prior. Maybe I was thinking at the time, because like I said, when I left my husband, I did go back to AA. It was a huge transition in my life. I was going 1 to 3 times a week. That's probably what I was thinking in my head. I was not trying to be misleading. I have been very truthful. I do not attend AA weekly right now at this time. I do attend therapy weekly at this time.
I have no further questions.
Okay, Mr. Paredes, anything?
Nothing, Your Honor, but I would reserve, if after the board has questions, I'd like to ask something.
Okay, then we'll go to the board. I don't know if you have preference, if you want to start at either end or how you want to do it. Okay, then if we'll start at the end. So just for the record, if you could just state your name.
Yeah.
And then if any of you have questions.
My mic was having problems. Can you hear it or no? Want me to project louder? A little bit? Okay. Ms. Bick, thank you so much for being here. I know it's hard to share a personal narrative when you've been through quite a bit, so thank you so much. I think I have about four questions. Do you happen to know what the California Board of Occupational Therapy's mission is? Why we even exist?
Why do you exist? So that you ensure that everybody that we are licensed under gets appropriate care and is safe and
Yeah, licensure is a big one. The main mission statement is consumer protection.
right.
Number one, consumer protection. Just curious to know, it's a two-part question. Why do you enjoy occupational therapy, and especially in the pediatric setting? What about it is your thing?
I just love seeing the change in the kids. I love helping the parents. I love problem solving. I just really love watching the growth that they make with the especially early intervention, especially for many diagnoses. It just is where I thrive. I love it.
If there were a second or third choice of practice, say peds wasn't your thing, you weren't able to do peds, what other area might you consider working in?
I guess physical disabilities and they never liked that I always just said I was going to go into peds and that I didn't really want to. I mean, I obviously learned about everything in OT, but it was really my passion to go into peds. I did a very short stint in a hospital as well with more physical disabilities. I mean, hand therapy is very interesting, but it's a separate specialization that I would need to obviously learn. But yeah, I always knew I wanted to go into peds.
Okay. And lastly, there's the landscape of OT, as you know, changes so quickly every year. Are you aware of any of the current changes since 2021 in our occupational therapy profession?
I am not.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, board member Denise Miller. So I will be taking a little bit longer than that. And if you can bear with me, I want to start here just so that this can be a dialogue and between us having this discussion that I know it's not easy sitting where you are. I take what's happening here for you very serious. And I intend to show you how fair I am, but I also have to tell you how truthful I am. And so you're going to know exactly where I stand. Okay. With that being said, I want to be clear about this. Your occupational therapy degree was completed at the University of Southern California, USC? Yes. And how much did that education cost you, approximately?
$80,000.
$80,000. And did you ever not pay a term or miss a payment or any
Following school?
during your education? Yeah.
During my education, no.
Okay. So similarly, what I would like to share with you, what's not clear to me is how the questions that your attorney has brought today before us, because and we've spent a lot of time here talking about what we've previously ruled on, but let's get right to the heart of the matter. You were reinstated with provisions, or not reinstated, but you had provisions you had to meet that included a penalty. You didn't meet them. Within 6 months of this board ruling, you reoffended. Nobody's using the word reoffended. Do you understand you reoffended?
Yes, I did not comply.
You did not comply. You reoffended. So I want to make sure that you understand within, and I intend, I really want you to know you can hear emotion in my voice, and I apologize for that. But I've struggled with your case. I've struggled with your case, and here's why. Because I have been on this board for 12 years. I follow the regulatory language to a T. I am usually one of the board members who is unmoved by emotion that comes forward. In your case, I was one of the board members that advocated for you. You know why? Because you had done a side. I won't go through it again here because I think that was painful and I'm not like that. But we went through all of those steps of all the things that happened, all the offenses that unfortunately happened for a very sad time in your life, right? But be that as it may, when looking at your case, you had been sober, you had proved your case, you had proved yourself, and I built a case for you that is so unlike what I've ever done in 12 years. And so, yeah, I want you to know, and I'm showing the emotion because I want you to get it, because I don't think you get it. I really don't think you get it. And so, and why don't I think you get it? Because I deal with stress pretty well. Well, did you call the board? Did you call the board and say, hey, can we look at the penalty? Hey, I have a board. I have somebody who monitors my case. Can we talk through this? You look like you know, aside from what's happened, the way you've described being an occupational therapist, I want you to be an occupational therapist. I want that for you. And I want that for me. And I'm not perfect. I've done things before, but when you get something that is such a privilege and then you get it back and then you reoffend in 6 months, what do you want me to do with that? What would you like me to think about? Help me. What would you like me to think about that?
I truly was mainly looking at the financial aspect of it, and I had no money. I wasn't able to pay $15,000. And I was really just trying to stay sober. And I pushed it aside because I didn't feel that there was any way I could get through it, you know?
But you were sober you were sober at the time that you did not renew your license. You were sober. You paid your debt. You passed over a very big.
Hold on. Let her finish her comment. Because you're interjecting and the court reporter is going to start yelling at me.
Got it.
So
I'll try to pause too.
you're fine. Let her make her comments. You will get an opportunity to respond. Okay. All right. Sorry.
So, no. And I just want your license lapsed from August 1st, 2020 and remained unlicensed by the board. And so in 2020, that's 2 years after you were sober. Such a big accomplishment for you. What would you do going forward?
I was told that I was not to practice with my license.
You can't practice.
Probation.
But do you have a monitor? I apologize that I keep. Do you have a disciplinary monitor with our board? Do you have somebody that checks in with you, anything like that? Okay. So to say,
I don't, I mean, not that I know of.
if your license, you've worked so hard, that's why I asked you about your education. I have no doubt that aside from this, and if you could take this seriously, and if you were really truthfully examining things that perhaps, you know, that there's, I mean, there's a real examination we all have to do on what we say and what we do, right? I attend 1 to 2 times, but you don't attend 2 times. So those types of things, I'm trying to build a case for you. So again, I intend, my board members can tell you, I've been on it for 12 years. I have never been this emotional. I promise I'm this emotional because I was pushing for you, and I'm mad. I'm mad at you. I'm mad at you because consumers not safe when you won't take it serious and you don't examine yourself seriously and say, okay, this is such a privilege to practice. I've paid so much money to practice. And then, okay, so I will wrap it up. I know my other board members want to, so you don't attend regularly. Your renewal dues, I want to help you out with a solution there. The renewal dues are $250. Pay your renewal dues, and if you're not paying your probationary dues, have a discussion with staff. Everything's a discussion, but the single most important thing is to have a license. And to have a license, you have to pay a renewal fee. And to pay that renewal fee, you have to take 24 PDUs. It's that clear. And when you move, tell us that you move and you change your address. It's that clear. So thank you. Thank you. I promise you that I promise you that my comments come from a place of really wishing we weren't here, but I want you to really get it. I'm rooting for you more than you think I am on this, but unfortunately, I'm not convinced the consumers say. Thank you.
Hi, board member Morcos here. Morcos, MORCOS. So, just a few questions. Do you have your own kids? See, this situation is emotional for me as well, but for the reason that I do. And since you have several things that happen that just really upset me inside, because God forbid if that would happen to my kid, I don't know what I would do. Like, so just some clarifying questions. When you were working with kids mainly under 3, did you always have in a group environment with other OTs, or have parents that were nearby, or did you have situations when you're one-on-one?
It was always one-on-one. The parents were highly encouraged to be in the sessions with us. There were always, I mean, there was many therapists all over. There were large rooms, separate rooms.
But you were dealing with one person.
One child at a time. Yes.
Okay. My concern there was because if other people are around and you were still ignoring that, you see what I'm saying? That's what would you do that a one-on-one with nobody else? Because the 3 and under, they don't really speak. And then my last question is, since you're saying it's such a passion of yours to be an OT and you work so hard for it, right? How come you didn't take any education or, further education or courses or continuing education courses or anything like that for so many years since it's your passion, right?
I really just felt defeated, like I was never going to be able to go back. And I had no way to financially support a course without the help from the job that usually helped me with courses and paid for them. I just was unable to address any of it, just didn't. I mean, there's no excuse. I'm not here to give you guys excuses. I mean, I have a very honest with what happened, what's going on in my life now. It's up to you guys. I have not taken any courses since then. No, not.
Were you even like researching things online? At least what what's new? What even if it's not a course? I mean, it's something that is your passion.
I've been in a state of just trying to stay sober. So yeah, no, I have not done a lot of research or things of that nature. I mean, I have a ton of education about I'm 26 years old. So I know I need to go back to continuing ed. get up to date on that, but, when she was talking about, reinstating or paying for the dues for my license, at that time, yes, I was sober, I did not have money to do continue, and I had not, so I wasn't trying to lie about doing things that I hadn't done. I'm a very honest person. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Richard Bookwalter, and I'm looking at the record that we have. On June 22nd, 2020 is when this board reviewed a previous administrative law decision where probation was proposed, and we developed a probation plan for you that was effective on June 22nd, 2020, which is a couple of years into your sobriety, what I understand.
Correct.
And it looks like I appreciate the effort that you're making to focus on yourself and to focus on your sobriety, all those things, because it is very, very challenging. 2 years in, when you got this probationary order, there were some conditions that were financial that you commented were overwhelming, primarily, and caused you to not to follow through with the conditions of probation. And there are a number of I'm looking at those conditions of probation in the record from the decision. They are, one of them was obtaining written approval from the board within 5 days of where you're currently employed, providing the names, physical addresses, mailing addresses, email addresses, fax numbers, and telephone numbers for your employers. Inform the board in writing of the facility or facilities where you're providing occupational therapy services, and filling an authorization consent form. Did you fill out? I don't. According to those forms, you did not fill those forms out.
No, I don't think I did. I don't think I did anything that was asked of me.
Right. And these were not financial things. They were forms.
Right.
Failing to maintain a current active license does cost money, so do the fines. There was also a proposed payment plan, so that was another option. And the physical examination and the psychotherapy evaluation, and also having a clinical diagnostic evaluation, rehabilitation and monitoring program, a chemical dependency support and recovery group, submitting biological fluid or specimen samples, obtaining and identifying a worksite monitor. These are all conditions of the probation. And yet, according to this record, none of that happened. So what assurance would you have if this board were to put you on probation that you would fulfill any of the conditions of a new probation?
Oh, it's my woman. That's why I am a different person. I truly was unable to follow through with most of those. Yes, I could have done some of them. I felt like doing some of them and not doing all of them is what's the purpose? What's the point? I should have reached out to somebody. I should have called somebody on the board. I should have told them what's going on. I didn't. I don't. I did not do any of it. I mean, at the time, when I was supposed to re-up my license, like I said, I did not have the continuing meds. It was during COVID. I didn't know how I was even going to go about doing that. And I believe I just looked at all the other things as far as the medical and this and the evaluations. And I thought, how am I going to do this? And I just didn't. It's not a good answer. It's all.
Thank you.
Christine Whitlasbach, board member. Hi. You need a break? You're okay? Okay. Okay, we're almost done. I'm going to keep my questions brief because we've already talked a lot about AA, but these are just some clarifying questions. Okay. Do you know what I mean when I ask you what type of meeting that you would attend? Because you said you have one picked out. It's about 20 minutes from your house. What type of meeting?
Yeah, well, it depended. There were speaker meetings and I was also doing more step meetings. It kind of depended. I didn't really just do the meetings were just one person. Well, that's a speaker. I mean, they asked me to speak there, but I preferred the step meetings or working the book meetings, things of that nature.
So when you go, it's to that speaker meeting or? So what do you do?
Yeah, you know, at the church, they do different.
Different
meetings
one.
at
Okay,
different
got it.
times.
I got kind of. I understand.
You know, so
Yes. I understand.
kind of pick and choose.
I got you. When's the last time you were at it?
It's probably been since August of 2023 is my guess.
Okay. And have you ever been a sponsor to anyone?
I have not.
No. Okay. Have you ever performed service at anyone?
Yes, I have spoken several times. I used to help out, but I never took on a direct role.
Gotcha.
Okay. I was really just felt like I needed to be there for me. I didn't feel that I had the bandwidth to help somebody else out.
I got you. Okay. Do you socialize with anyone from AA? Other than your ex?
Sometimes, not really. No, I don't really socialize with a lot of people.
So if you felt like you, and I know you say I'll never drink again, but let's be honest, no one knows if they're ever
I
going to
don't.
drink again.
Nobody knows.
Right.
No,
So if you felt like you needed to take a drink, who would you call?
I would call Ron Rainbow.
Is that your ex-husband? Is that your ex-husband?
Yes.
Okay, your sponsor.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any other sponsors other than him?
I had Kathy.
Oh, that's
very beginning.
That's
Just for a little while. We didn't. I don't know. I just didn't hear her. Like
I got you.
I mean, I really needed something to kind of meet my kids.
I got you, books. Okay, thank you.
Board Member Doe?
No questions yet.
I'm s- We didn't catch that. There was some distortion in sound.
Sorry, no questions right now.
No questions right now.
May I correct a statement I made, President Bookwalter? So just for the record, I would like it to be known that said license was placed on 5 years probation by proposed decision order effective June 22nd. Said license lapsed from August 1st, 2020. So it was not 6 months, it was 2 months.
Thank you. What's our next step?
Okay, Mr. Paredes, do you have any follow-up?
No follow-up, Your Honor. Quick housekeeping. I believe all of the exhibits have been uploaded in the case leads. So I don't know if you can check that.
Let me
update
check
there.
that. While I'm checking on this, Mr. Elliott, do you have any follow-up?
I just wanted to follow up on one theme that seemed to be coming across the board. I think there's been a lot of concern expressed as to your readiness to return. And some emphasis in particular was placed on the fact that when you were on probation, you had obtained your sobriety. At that time, had you started working with a therapist?
No.
And why is it that you were not working with a therapist at that time?
I didn't have a way to. I didn't have the monetary ability to.
And how is it that you're able to see a therapist weekly now?
My mom pays for me.
And it has been your experience in working through that therapy that you feel like you're ready to take responsibility for these things?
Yes, I was always ready to take responsibility for it, but yeah, I feel like I am a different person at this point than I was back when we're talking about.
Okay. Thank you.
So I am the judge, but I'm not the decision maker. My role here solely is to manage the proceedings. The board will eventually make the decision, and then I'll write it. But when I write it, it's their decision. Okay. So I want to make that clear. But part of my job is to develop the record a little bit. And I just have one question, based on the board's questions and just some of the concerns that I've seen. And I'm sorry, Mr. What's your Bookwalter? Okay, he went over some of the probationary conditions that had been imposed that you didn't comply with. If you were to get your license back, it is quite possible and likely that the board would impose conditions. They would probably look very similar to what the board imposed last time. And probation is quite onerous. It is quite expensive. What is your plan going forward to ensure that you do comply with those? Because again, from what I looked at in the record, there's an examination, there will be continuing education, there will be biological fluid testing, if the board decides to do that. That's typically what will happen in a case like this. If there's a reinstatement, it's expensive. There are usually daily call-ins, there are check-ins. I think now we're all fancy, there's an app, I think now, but those are onerous conditions. What's your plan, or have you thought about going forward how you are going to comply with that, including the costs?
Yeah, cost wise, I am assuming that my mom would have to help me with that because I make maybe $300 a week doing what I do right now. I unfortunately don't have savings, or else I could have helped the first time. I will just follow through with it. I live with my mom, so anything that I make, I can put toward these fees. I am currently seeing a therapist. I am on Medi-Cal now for insurance. If I needed to get some of these evaluations, possibly that would help. She has been paying out of pocket to help me with some of these things, like the psychiatrist eval, the psychologist eval. I'm assuming she would be doing the same thing. I mean, I would need help from my family, and they would help me.
Okay, and if you found yourself in a position where
they didn't know that I was going through this back when I was going through this, I didn't let them know. So that wasn't really an option to bring up the financial burden of all of that at that time. I did not let them know.
Okay, so if you found yourself unable to comply, let's say you couldn't afford the education, or you missed a biological fluid test check-in, what would you do?
Well, I would not miss anything. If I was given the opportunity to do this again, I would call the board or call whoever my point person is and let them know of my situation. But I would not miss anything. I would follow through with everything. I have a different support system now.
Okay, anything from the board? Any other questions?
Your Honor.
Can I ask a question? May I ask a question, Your Honor?
Go ahead.
For the record, Board Member Denise Miller, can you, I know this is painful, but it's helpful to know all the information. Your attorney stated that you've gone through personal challenges in the past year, and I can see previous challenges, but it's not clear to me in your record what your challenge has been in the past year. And you can keep it high level. I'm not trying to embarrass you in the.
The main thing was leaving my ex-husband, moving in with my mom. Trying to find a job is very challenging. I always was honest with anybody I tried to find a job with about my history and my sobriety. I lost a 2-year-old dog that I loved more than anything around this time. It was more 2021, 2022. What else has happened? Really just the total upheaval of my life in the last year has been quite challenging, but I have been managing quite well. I'm happy with where I am.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Paredes.
Ma'am, I'm going to go a little more into the financial just to so the board has a better idea of where you're at. Okay, so right now the costs are $15,000. So 12 months times 5 is 60. Generally, boards like you to be done in 54 months, so 6 months. That's about $277 a month, a little more. With your current situation, is that something that's just going to be too much for you realistically? And this does not affect your, as I understand it, this does not affect your ability to get your license back. The board is trying to figure out realistically what you can and can't do because you can't take blood from a stone. Okay.
Right. I could do $277.
Okay. And sometimes testing is sometimes several more $100s a week. So if you stack the $300 in testing on top of the 277, is that something that you could realistically do?
Realistically, not completely on my own. I would need to ask for family help on that.
So on your own, and I understand you have a support system, but on your own, with the financial options you have realistically available right now, that's a burden that's significant. Is the 277-ish plus a couple 300, maybe even more a month in testing. That's something that could just by itself set you back. Even if you do everything else perfect, that's something that could hurt you, that you could have difficulty doing.
Yeah, it would be challenging if I had no outside support.
So you think you can do the 277, and what do you think? Do you think that 300 is the upper limit that you could pay a month realistically without having to dip into other people supporting you?
Yes.
And that 300 would include both the costs for testing and potentially the costs for reimbursement. You see that?
Yes.
I have no further questions. One more, Your Honor. When was you said last time you were at the A meeting was August. Is that August of 2023 or August of 2024?
2023.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Elliott, anything?
Sorry. Beata Morcos here. Did you ever try to get any other job, like not in the healthcare industry, just to make money to pay for things?
I was working with a psychologist as an aide for 4.5 years during post this stuff with my OT license. I was an aide and I went to Cal State Long Beach with him. But that was what I did for 4.5 years. When I left my husband, I didn't work for probably 6 months, and then I've been this little boy's aide. That's been it. I haven't gone into the field.
Or any other
fields.
Okay,
No, I have
not
not.
even like a library. I'm just saying something.
No,
just
I didn't. I really wanted to be working with children or doing something where I'm seeing a difference. I didn't just want to get any job just to have a job.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Since this is your petition, if I'll give you one opportunity, if you want to say anything else before we go to closings. Anything you want to clarify, anything that maybe to follow up?
I don't disagree with your anger at me. I understand. I really have the ability to address any of this at that time. I do now. It would be challenging in the sense of monetarily. I will need some help. I can do $300 a month. I work part-time. I'm just here to show you who I am. You know, I'm not here to lie or give you stories that I think you need to hear. I mean, this is the truth. This is what happened, and all I have to do is move forward. And thank you for listening.
Okay. Mr. Elliott, closing argument.
And Your Honor, for clarification, he gets 2 closings. Is that correct? It's his burden.
Yes, we'll have him go first, followed by you, and then you'll get a brief rebuttal if you'd like one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for your patience today. Thank you, Rondell. I know this has been extremely difficult to relive and to have your feet held to the fire. This is clearly one of the most important things to you in your life. And I'd like to say on your behalf that the reason we're here today is because you are so passionate about returning to this career. It means the world to you. And I think everyone in this room knows that you're not seeking a license to chase a fortune. This is not a career that pays what it's worth. And the impact that you have had on children's lives and wish to have on children's lives in the future is why you are here hat in hand, asking for forgiveness and ready to do the work to get back to it. So all we can do at this point is hope for the best and continue to do your work. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Paredes.
Thank you. Petitioner has shown some genuine emotion, and this is obviously very important to her. My role in the Business of Professions Code, I'm not concerned with petitioner, and I don't say that coldly because I care about all the work she's done and all the progress she's made and all the hard work she's done. And that's not my job. I'm not worried about her. The board's responsibility, and really every board's responsibility, is public safety. Your board deals with some of the most vulnerable populations in the state. Someone mentioned you deal with children under 3, often with communications or learning disabilities. You deal potentially with the very elderly. You deal with very vulnerable populations. And as my role as representative of the people of the state of California in this case is to remind you of that. I don't need to, but this isn't about, in a very real sense, not about petitioner. It's about what petitioner does out in the world. So we've established some really bad things that happen. And they happened, 2016. To me, it doesn't seem that long time ago, but when she said she was 6 years sober, 2018, I was like, 6 years. Wow, 2018 was 6 years ago. She's absolutely right. 2016 was a long time ago, and I understand that. There were some things that were done that shouldn't have been done, that should never have been done. The first incident of dragging a child, the second instance of basically ignoring a child, being intoxicated at work, being intoxicated. Look, we've all shown up late for work, we've all done things we're not, but this is not that, right? This is not that. So what is this? These are very serious issues, very serious things that bring in the state of California's trust, people's state of California's trust in this board. Because when I hire a contractor, an attorney, an occupational therapist, and they have this imprimatur, this seal from you all saying, this is a person I can trust. So this is what you're tasked with. And there's some things that I have concerns with. The first was minimization. I believe I did this. I believe this happened. Now, those are things that are embarrassing and nobody wants to admit they did them. And the minimization to me is a red flag because what it says is, I haven't owned this. I haven't owned it in my heart, in my bones. I haven't owned it to the point where I know I did it. And since I did this thing, I screwed up in this particular way of being intoxicated at work, being intoxicated at work, dragging a child, letting another child run off. I haven't owned it, then how do I know I'm not going to do it again? I haven't owned it. How do I know I'm not going to do it? That's an issue. There is one part of respondent's testimony that I do not believe. According to respondent, she was intoxicated twice. 2 times she was caught. I don't believe it. The odds of somebody showing up intoxicated to work and getting caught the 2 times they were intoxicated, I just don't think she's that lucky. I think the more reasonable the Occam's razor, the more probable conclusion is that she was more intoxicated for those days. But I don't show up to work intoxicated. What's more reasonable, that I showed up to work intoxicated on that one day and got caught, or that I was in the habit of taking a shot or 2 before work just to level it out, all the stress of my life, and today I took 3 or 4 or 6. That brings in respondents' credibility. The other aspect I have is the minimization. We spend a lot of time talking about AA. Why? Respondent says she's been to hundreds of meetings. She doesn't know any of the steps. She doesn't know any of the steps. Not really. By osmosis, by simply standing there. I'm not saying she was in these meetings heart and soul, but just by standing there after hundreds of meetings, she should know the steps. She misled the board, intentionally or not intentionally is for you all to decide. But she misled the board by saying she went to 1 or 2 meetings. She hadn't been to AA since August of 2023. And in May of this year, so 4 months ago, she said she went once to twice a week. Is that minimization? Is that wishful thinking? That it's misleading the board. I'm not saying she's lying, but she's on purpose, but she is misleading. When you stack up all of these things, is this the person that you want to put state's approval and stamp to go out and to treat some of the most vulnerable populations in the state? That's your decision. We make no recommendation on this case necessarily, but I would like you to keep those factors in the minimization, constant minimization, misleading of the board, and the arguably incredible coincidence that she was caught the 2 times she was drunk, intoxicated at work. If for some reason the board does want to give a license, then I would heavily consider all of the previous statements regarding, all the previous terms that were discussed, and I would significantly ask the board to look at the psychological and physical testing requirements prior to licensure, to before licensure, and the ongoing drug and alcohol terms that are optional in your disciplinary guidelines. But before granting probation, I'd ask you to look at that threshold question of, have we shown the remorse that we need to by owning the things that we need to, by admitting the things that we can do, by taking all the steps that we should have. And I think that this petition lacks a great number of those things. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to take this moment to say that if I could have transferred the unearned confidence that is inherent in being a white man in this world, I would have happily handed it to petitioner today. It would have given her the strength to stand before the scrutiny of this room and speak less timidly and use words that were more certain. Knowing Rondell as I do, I know her speaking mannerisms, and I know that how she communicates comes from a place of a humble attitude. And when she is stating, I believe so, it's because she's being asked very difficult questions. And it's very difficult for her to state with certainty what has happened. But I can also state very clearly that I have never seen anyone more remorseful for the actions they've taken in the past, someone more dedicated to making them right, and more convincing that they will bring that passion to the career should they be granted another opportunity to practice in it. Filling out the petition form itself was a gut-wrenching experience for my client. And she did her best on her own to provide you with the information that she believed that you needed to make a decision today. I don't believe that she intended to mislead you. She wanted to give you her experience in various forms of what she'd been doing and why she believed she was ready to return to being an occupational therapist. As she stated, she no longer attends AA meetings regularly. And she's been very clear about that she goes back when she needs it. And she tried to answer the questions in the form to reflect her state of mind and what she was doing when she needed it. The financial obligations did become an overwhelming impediment for her compliance with all of the conditions of probation. And it wasn't until she surrendered to the truth and owned up to her responsibilities and shared that with her family that she truly was ready to take this on again. And with the help of her family, she sought therapy and self-improvement and is in a much better place to re-engage. And in our conversations, we have discussed that should the board grant her license back to her, that it is very likely that she will have to comply with the conditions of probation that seemed out of reach to her before. And she has assured me that she is ready, willing, and able to meet all of those conditions going forward. She understands that she needs to communicate with the board if anything feels out of reach, so that no one is left wondering if she's truly committed to this or not. And yes, your responsibility is to make sure that the citizens of the state of California, especially the vulnerable population of California, can get the best possible care through occupational therapy. It is my strong belief that Rondell is one of the best people to do that. Does she have a photographic memory? No. Is she the type of personality that would have thrived in law school? Absolutely not. So the fact that she cannot come in here and recite verbatim the 12 steps is not surprising to me because I know her. And I know that reciting, rote memorization is not her skill. Her skill is in interacting with human beings, understanding where they are, and caring for them. And I don't believe that being able to recite from memory a written 12-step is going to do anything to help her in that role. I am also a father, and I understand some of the reservations that have been expressed by the board today. I would not have any reservation of trusting my child to Rhonda. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, the record's closed. So we can go off the record, and I'm not sure how you want to do this. I know you go into closed session, so I guess clear the room, and I don't know if you guys want to take a break before you discuss it.
Yes, we may need to take a break because we will also need to transfer some technology to a laptop. So thank you very much for your participating in this, and I'd like to close the open session. We're going to go into closed session for deliberations after a short break. We will reconvene at the end of the closed session. No business will be conducted. So we will be able we will immediately close for the day, adjourn for the day after that, after the closed session is completed. That's for those who are here by WebEx. So we will clear the room and set up the laptop at this time. Thank you very much.